We just talk about poor Peter, though. It's a Friday. He has been sent from his misdemeanor court in Compton to a felony court all the way downtown to a felony judge who is thrilled to be picking up that slack. And his defense has just been excluded. And now here comes a panel of all of these people who are like, fuck you, we thought we were out of jury duty. And now we have to walk in on a Friday and come back next week. So can we all just take a moment to recognize, because we've all been there. We've all been in that spot on a Friday afternoon. Like, everybody hates me and this is the worst and I don't know what I'm going to say.
Welcome to Another Not Guilty. I'm David Moore, here along with my fellow public defenders, presenting to you the untold stories of the criminal justice system.
Objection! That assumes there's justice in the system, which there ain't. I prefer calling it the American criminal system.
These stories are about the not guilties public defenders get on a daily basis.
In an unjust criminal system.
With the deck stacked against us.
Not guilty.
And welcome back, everybody, to Another Not Guilty. It's your boy Davey D here, presenting you with the freshest not guilties across these United States. I almost forgot the word fresh for a second there. That was, woo!
That was close.
Another Not Guilty, presenting the freshest not guilties across these United States. One not guilty at a time. That's how we do it here in Another Not Guilty verse. Of course, me, Davey Defense, here with my awesome co-host, Lauren Marie Mannon. Lauren, how are you doing there?
Hi,
What's
everyone.
going on?
I'm doing pretty good. This is a short week, so
yeah,
trying not to complain.
Right on. And so how's your summer been? How's the hot public defender summer been?
Wow, it's been very hot as of late. Like, just recently, we had a pretty mild summer, and all of a sudden now it's scorched earth all around us. It's
crazy. Speaking of scorched earth, today's guest is a public defender from here in LA County. He scorched some earth. He was scorching earth down in the courtroom here at the Compton courthouse, and I was like, who is this guy? Who is this new kid in town that everyone's talking about? I was like, we got to get him on the show. So here today to present our guest is Peter Neal from the LA County Public Defender's Office, our fellow coworker. Peter Neal, how you doing? Go ahead and introduce yourself to the A&G verse. It's different doing the podcast like in this setting, by the way. I'm just a little I feel a little off, by the way. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
We got you.
Yeah, maybe I'm just gonna be me. I'm just gonna be me how I am today.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, look, your blue eyes are popping today, so it's really, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
we're gonna do this. And Peter, tell us who you are. You look very young.
Yes. Well, I have a wife and a child, whatever that's worth.
So, someone likes you. Someone likes this guy,
I don't know if it means much. Maybe in California it does. In like Kentucky, you could be 18 or 16. I don't know.
Well, my name, Peter Neal. I just started as a public defender here in LA in October. And first branch assignment is here in Compton. I did some prelims here before, but otherwise this is my
less
first.
Than a year in?
I am.
You are a baby. Okay.
Let's see. I graduated 2022, so I had a little break there. I'm in the Army Reserves as a JAG, so I was on active duty orders for like a year and a half doing not prosecution or defense, other stuff. But
I enjoy how quick you rushed in with it. Don't worry, I didn't do prosecution.
Yeah.
I am one of you.
Yes.
Peter. Well, anyways, welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Glad you could be here. I was in the hallways talking to some lawyers, and some of our colleagues came by and said, you got to get Peter on the show. He just did this trial. It's like the best trial ever. And I was like, all right, let's get him on the show then.
And we got to set the expectations a little lower. I think it was mostly that, I feel very alone in that courtroom in my first few trials. And so I'm telling everybody about every single thing that happens. And so whether they like it or not, they're hearing about it.
I love the new enthusiasm.
All right, Peter. Well, to go ahead and tell the A&G universe about this not guilty, tell us what your client was charged with.
Okay, so in this case, it was a handoff to me, not my case at arraignment or pre-trial. But as it was delivered to me, it was 2 counts. The first was a 243E1, domestic battery, and a 273AB, child abuse.
Okay. Misdemeanor charges 243E1 domestic violence, but with no injury. It's only
No
a
injury.
misdemeanor. And then it's misdemeanor child abuse. Okay. And those are both misdemeanors. Both you could serve a year in county jail. If convicted or if you're placed on probation, you'd have to do some domestic violence counseling or parenting classes for 52 weeks each. They could be expensive. If you have a domestic violence conviction, it could affect your child custody since there's a child involved. Anyways, so there's some serious issues here, some serious consequences to this case. So what did your client allegedly do,
What
Peter?
was the child abuse code section?
It was Penal Code 273A-B.
Okay, I've only ever had that as a felony.
This may be one that is wobble.
I guess it does
Doesn't
wobble.
matter. As a felony, that's a life case. So, I'm curious to see how it's charged as a misdemeanor.
Yeah, so luckily not facing life in this case. One of the big collateral consequences that was at issue here that will become more and more relevant as the story goes on is the potential consequences for custody. And there was 2 kids involved, and there was parallel family court proceedings going on that the judge there basically said, I'm going to make my decision based off of kind of what happens in that criminal case, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so going into it, your client's got a 2-year max in county jail and is looking at collateral consequences of losing his children.
Right.
Okay.
But let's start from the top, so we know the charges. And what did your client allegedly do? What's the government claiming he did?
Yep. So the story here is
And introduce
that,
your client. Who is your client?
yeah, we'll call him Mr. C.
Okay.
And Mr. C, the way the story goes, police show up for a call for service. He shows up at his baby mama's house, and she says, shows up unannounced, barges into the house. His family's with him, and he goes up to the baby mom, is arguing with her about the kids, and as the baby mom is holding the child, grabs her and throws her to the ground. And that's the battery, and then the child abuse is based off of the fact that she says that, she was holding him, and then they have a photo. He has a bloody nose that
The baby does?
the child does, yeah. So he's turned 4 during the trial. It's not full baby toddler.
At the time of the offense.
3.
3. Okay. So your client allegedly, with all his family, barges into the mother's house, and then he gets into an altercation with her, throws her to the ground, and then the child's in her arms, so he put him in danger too.
They're not currently together when he barges into the house.
No, not together. They were separated. She had been withholding his kids from him. The story as alleged, the kind of the theme they try and take on is that he showed up to the house to take the kids by force. And in the process of that, threw her to the ground, ripped him out of her arms, and tried to run away.
So it was an attempted kidnapping that wasn't charged.
I guess you could say in the story that was provided, sure. Which, as we will learn, turns out to not really necessarily track with the truth. But she's there, the kids are there, and then her brother is also there, as well as her parents.
So her family's there.
Yeah, so her whole family's there. And then Mr. C's mom, aunt, and then a family friend were there on his side.
It's a lot of witnesses.
Yes.
Did any of them intervene?
Nothing that's really relevant in the beginning. No real intervention. It's basically the brother who turns out to be a major, TikTok star. He was there, and he was the one who called the police.
The maternal brother.
The baby mama's brother.
Yeah, let's go maternal family and then paternal family. They can both be there. So,
but essentially, they all just watched this guy come in and assault her, and nobody stopped. Like, they were fighting, and he grabs her while she's holding their child, and everyone just watches or films TikTok videos.
Essentially, yes. That they all watch, and there's a lot of yelling, I guess, back and forth, and as comes out in direct later with the Starboy brother, he says that the way that the situation ends is he tells Mr. C, client, hey, do things the right way. And, and so then the entire situation stops. He puts down the kids and walks away and gives up on the whole endeavor because he was so persuasive, I guess.
Wow, do the right thing. I like that. Does the police report go into what statements from everybody else? Do they give witness statements, or is it just they interviewed the mother? That's it.
Yes. So they show up. They interview the baby mother and her brother, who are waiting there outside for them. They essentially give loose versions of the same story. That he showed up with court papers. Actually, they get in a big argument, and he threw it to the ground, tried to grab the kid, paused the bloody nose, and ran away. And then they don't really directly interview the parents, but they're kind of standing there during they interviewed the baby mom and the brother several times at different points throughout the kind of night.
Is the client left then? He wasn't there when the police arrived?
He was gone.
And the paternal family also was gone?
Yeah, full paternal family was gone at that point.
Everybody just took, okay.
Okay. They all just rolled with him for this and then left with him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Entourage.
How does he get arrested then?
So amazingly, he's never contacted by the police. Despite that night, they give the address that he's staying at, his phone number, the names and addresses of the family members who were there, their phone numbers. I mean, these are well known to each other people, and police never contact him, contact his family, follow up. And so basically, a couple weeks later, on April 29th, investigator gets it, calls the baby mama, reads the police report. She says, yep, all sounds good. And they file a felony warrant based on it.
And still, though, did they send a letter? Did he show up to court? Was he arrested on an arrest warrant that he didn't know about later?
So a letter comes in the mail to him at some point later on. He shows up to court. It's actually been charged as a misdemeanor, and the process kind of starts there.
I hate that when their whole way of letting someone know about a criminal case against them is just to send a letter. Just a nice letterhead that says district attorney on it. Hopefully it's the right address. They just go off whatever address is in the DMV or whatever. So did he live in another city?
Yes, he was living in San Bernardino County.
Oh, okay. And this is what, LA Sheriff's or LAPD?
This is Sheriff's.
LA Sheriff's, okay.
They couldn't be bothered. That was too far.
San Bernardino's way too far,
Too far.
I can see why there's
custody. Kid with the busted nose. This is too far for us to go investigate.
I can see why there's custody issues.
So I was not here when the arraignment happened or any of the pretrial. This was my second week here in Compton since being branched, and this is another attorney's case. They're in trial. They're not looking to waive time on this. So I get the handoff on the 8 of 10. And that's when I meet client, kind of read the case.
Oh, I miss those days in misdemeanors where you're just minding your business and your boss walks over and goes, go walk in with this file. You're picking a jury. What?
So what were your initial impressions of the case? You spoke to the lawyer that was their case, right? They handed it off to you. So what did they tell you?
It was a pretty well prepped case in terms of at least like the basics, which was nice.
Of course, it's a LA County public defender case. So
yes,
obviously.
And there was transcripts for anything that needed to be translated, and those were certified. There was investigative reports of witnesses from our side that had been turned over.
What needed to be translated?
There was some body-worn excerpts, but nothing that ended up being.
So the witnesses were Spanish speaking?
There was some Spanish being spoken at points. Nothing that was really significant kind of. And basically I get the brief. We have client and his family who say that this never happened, the push never happened. And we have baby mama and her family who say it did happen. That's pretty much the state of the case.
You said there was witness statements from the paternal side. So who are the paternal witnesses?
Paternal witnesses, client's mother, aunt, and family friend.
Okay. And they say the push never happened. Did they say why they went there?
So they explained that what happened, the kids were being withheld from client for over a month. He wanted to see them, and there was some issues where the baby mama had been taking the kids to doctor's appointments, and so he finally wanted to take action and take this into family court so that a judge there could order joint custody and allow them to exchange the kids on neutral territory and share custody and make sure the doctor's appointments were being gone to. And so they all showed up with the court papers to initiate those proceedings. And that's why he came with the family. He came with other people to make sure that he had witnesses and people there to help kind of manage the situation.
At the time that this incident happened, they were already fighting over custody in court?
No, so this was kind of the initiating event where the court papers were going to be delivered.
Okay. So they hadn't been in court fighting, but they were arguing over custody. Like their arrangement wasn't copacetic between the two of them in regards to their co-parenting.
Correct. Yes. So it was, she didn't like him. To this point, obviously they're separated, and she felt that, she wanted to have kids with her. And so she just wouldn't let him come and see the kids or take the kids.
And then after the alleged incident happened to when the case was filed, they had gone to family court. And the mother, had she tried to use this incident already in court to try and say she should keep the kids?
Yes. And so this is something I learned about that day. So I go in and I get this general brief. It's a big he said, she said, statements are ready, but meet the client and go over everything with them. In passing, at the end, he kind of just mentions, and it's ridiculous because in this family court proceeding 2 weeks ago, the judge was about to order joint custody and kind of give them what they were looking for. And the baby mom out of nowhere says, wait, you can't do that. He strangled my son. And has a completely new kind of version of what happened. It's far more extreme and immediately in response to the order.
She's saying he strangled her on the same, as part of the same incident. This wasn't a separate occasion? Right.
And it's not, she doesn't make that context clear in that moment, but if you read the whole transcript, it's clear that that's what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. She claims that she's working with her attorney to extend the restraining order, but there is no attorney, it's just the district attorney, as the judge there figures out. And so the judge there is there's something on here. So I'm just going to step back. Let's wait to see what happens in the criminal proceedings and go from there.
How many kids do they have, or do they share?
2 kids, a son and a daughter.
So they go to family law court. The mother makes an additional statement that she was strangled now.
No, the kid was strangled, right?
The kid was strangled.
Oh, the kid was strangled.
The
Does the paternal side explain the bloody nose? Because did he really have a bloody nose? Was there evidence of a bloody nose?
Yes. So when deputies show up, there is a little bit of blood in the son's nose, but it's not really explained how that happened, what actual action by client or anybody else caused that. Because basically the way they describe him is coming in, pushing him to the ground, and that's the extent of the actual action that require the charges that kind of meet the elements. But the bloody nose it's unclear what that is actually from.
Okay, and the paternal side doesn't have an explanation of it either.
When I asked them about it, it's really just...
He was like that when they got there?
Well, it wasn't like that when they got there. It was really just that, there's a lot of movement of the kids, between different people. The maternal family and the baby mama, them kind of grabbing at the kids, moving them around. And at some point, they'd run and jumped into his arms, and she pulled him out of there. And so there was definitely a lot of chaos. An enduring question was if the bloody nose occurred then, how did it happen? But don't really... No.
Okay. So tell us about when you go to meet your client then. Did you call him on the phone? Did you let him know you would be doing the jury trial, or did you just meet him in court on the 8 of 10?
Met him in court. So he came in for trial, 8 of 10, went down, introduced myself, explained what was going on.
In custody, out of custody?
Out of custody.
Okay. So let me know what was going on. Tell us about that. How was that?
Yeah, so I go over the facts as I understand them to be.
Wait, was he thrilled to have a last-minute fourth quarter substitution of attorney? He was like, great, I love that you're brand new to this and we're about to pick a jury.
I got to say he was a really good sport about it. He did not express any annoyance or frustration with it. He was, okay, this is how we go,
This is happening.
They're bringing in the closer for my hands. All. And so he was really cool about me. Great guy. I think on its face, the case isn't some, this is a sure winner. It's a he said, she said, and, a photo of a kid with bloody nose. It's not some obvious, we got to take this one to trial. But then as you talk to him, and as I experienced this the same way the attorneys before me experienced it, is he was just incredibly compelling. I mean, when he talks about, when he would sit there and tell you what happened and why she's lying and this and that, it all made a lot of sense. And you sat and it was like, wait, this is like a real injustice. And I asked him, I said, is there an offer that you'd be willing to take on this? And no, there's no offer. This is ridiculous.
Were there any prior DV between them?
No. And
charged or otherwise?
Nothing ever mentioned. And in a report that we got that was DCFS follow-up to the incident, they noted, no prior DV. So somebody told them at some point, it must have been the baby mama said, oh, no, nothing like this stuff.
Okay.
And then, what is the game plan for the defense then? Because, I mean, some workup's already been done. There's transcripts of recordings. Was there a 911 call?
Yep, so there's a 911 call, and the incident occurs while the baby mama is on the 911 call. So she's speaking to the 911 operator.
Wait, I thought the brother called 911.
So the brother calls, and he's saying, they're arguing about court, blah, blah, blah. And they say, can we please talk to her?
So he calls before the alleged push.
Yes. Calls before the alleged push.
Oh, that's bad for you.
He's basically angry because I think that he was under a mistaken impression that there was a restraining order for some reason. As I learned later, the parents had essentially been yelling at her. Parents had been yelling at her to take action in court so we can get the kids. And she hadn't done any of that, and it sounds like maybe she was telling them that she had been taking action.
Why would there be a restraining order if there was no prior DV?
No idea. I think it's because they didn't have a great understanding of exactly what she had or hadn't been doing before. And I think that she just told them I'm going to get custody of the kids. He's not going to be allowed to come here.
Okay. They just didn't know. They just weren't sophisticated about the legal system, it sounds like. So he thought there was a restraining order. He calls 911, and then she's on the phone narrating what happened, which potentially blows your chance of getting this excluded.
I think, how it went down was the brother calls 911, and then the operator says, we want to talk to the mother. So he calls 911 before the alleged incident. So on the 911 call, he hands the phone to the mother, right?
Yep.
And then what happens next to the 911 call?
And she's on the phone and says, we told them not to come. We want him gone. We want him out of the house. Come and take him out of the house. And then there's a gap of maybe 15 seconds, and you just kind of hear ambient yelling in the background. And she goes, he just pushed me. He just pushed me. And then they kind of continue on. And then at the end of the call, she says, now this will be a report, right? Because I want to bring this to the court.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you don't want to exclude the 911 call.
Yeah, so initially I thought on the audio you can't hear anything that sounds like a pushing or a fall or anybody who's up close to her.
Or any struggling, right?
A baby crying.
You don't hear the baby crying, a couple inches from the phone or anything.
You said ambient yelling too, right? So
yeah, so you can hear other noise. You can hear arguing that sounds more distant, but nothing that sounds like it's happening right there. And then the way the call starts off is the brother says, there's a court case, and they're arguing about the court case. And then the way it ends is with her, requesting, hey, can I get the report for this so I can give it to them?
So is she then just has the phone in one hand? Is there any indication that she's holding the child in the other or at all?
This is one of the things that there's a lot of, you sit there and you kind of hear how she describes it. You listen to the evidence, and then you watch the body-worn video in which she reenacts it for police.
Of reenactments.
Oh, yeah. And it's a physical reenactment. It's on film. And she's based in an L-shaped couch. It's in front of her and then sticks out towards her to her left. She reenacts while holding the kid. She's holding him with both arms, and she says, I was standing right here, and then I got pushed to the ground on the left side.
Where the couch is?
Yeah. So there's already an audio where it's take a bunch of photos of her left arm, and say, look, it's red, it's red. Not to mention she'd been reenacting things grabbing her arm. And then she says that she's holding the kid with both hands. But she's also on the phone with 911.
Right.
Narrating to them.
Did she have the Bluetooth that the boomers love to wear around?
AirPods.
Okay.
So that's something I noticed. And I'm like, there's some odd abilities here in terms of exactly how it was said. And look, people can forget and you remember certain things. But in this case, it was, how are you holding the phone and talking to the police on the phone? How did somebody come up to you from the left and throw you down if the couch is to your left? Then there's another physical possibility.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about any other pieces of evidence that you saw, any other videos or recordings that stood out to you?
The other physical possibility would have been, there's a bunch of photos of the bloody nose, and it's not explained how the bloody nose actually occurred. It's included as this foregone conclusion. A shove of her caused this bloody nose to him.
But just to be clear, the pictures are not of an actively bleeding nose. It's just like a little crusty blood in the nostril.
Right. Yeah. It's red. It's not even dripping down or anything. It's a little shiny-ish red, so I'd say it looks recent. But it's not gushing nose or anything.
It's fresh. It was fresh to the touch. Okay. Any other recordings that stood out to you? Any other pieces of evidence?
Videos of the interviews in there. That's her reenacting it. But then deputies at one point actually do kind of ask, like, what happened to the son? And at the same time, several family members give different versions. The mom swings her arm in a way that reenacts like a punching in the face.
Wait, the complaining witness mother or her mother?
Sorry, the grandmother.
Grandmother.
Okay.
Maternal.
Yes, the maternal grandmother.
Okay.
She gives a reenactment that your client was suddenly George Foreman.
Yeah. And it's weird, and the mother like doesn't really look at that, and she kind of ignores that and is like, oh, he pulled his arm. And then the brother says, yeah. And then the dad like kind of, I think he like swings his leg or something. It all happens at the same time, and so you're like, this is weird. Like nobody really knows what happened.
All right then. So your case then is really like their word versus. I mean, it is the he said she said thing I get, but there is some physical evidence of a bloody nose. We got the 911 call, which kind of contradicts the mother's side, so it's not completely he said she said. So we have some evidence there. So is that kind of it though for the case?
The way that it stands on the 8 of 10 is we have witness statements from client and his family saying it didn't happen. You've got the maternal family saying it did happen, and then you've got a photo of an arm that maybe red, I guess. You've got photo of bloody nose, and then you've got the 911 call, which, like you said, there are aspects of it that I really like. But then you also have a contemporaneous in the moment telling, saying, he just pushed me.
Yep. So you're getting past Crawford on that. So your client doesn't want to take any deal, because it seems to me like if they wanted to, they could have had him on a trespass.
And so that's actually exactly what I proposed to him. I said, like, look, like if you're interested, I can go and I can try and ask. Who knows? Maybe they'll give you trespass. Like we can look at it. And he's like, no, this is great. Like he's like, you can't get away with this. I'm not giving it on this one.
No,
and
not on a custody issue case. You're not taking a trespass on a custody dispute case.
Well, and he sits there, and the way that he explains to me when he sits there and goes through it all, you walk away really like, oh my gosh, like there's something real here. Because
nice when you have a compelling client.
Yes, like he was inspiring us more than anything else was in terms of his own assertions of his innocence and incarnation. I showed up, the parents started yelling at her, saying, "You idiot! He's gonna get the kids now because he acted first. You got to do something." And then all of this kind of happens, and we end up here. I walk by, I'm like, okay, we've got he said, she said, maybe some miscellaneous evidence, but then strong motive to lie, some explanations of the crime.
Are there any issues with anyone being undocumented and wanting to get them convicted of a crime so that they can be deported?
No, so not in this case.
Okay, but you still have the solid motive for the custody.
Yep, and then in this conversation with the client on the 8 of 10, he mentioned this family court hearing, and where she said that, no, he actually strangled my son. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I immediately kind of started thinking, oh, we got to try and, like, I wonder if there's a trend. Like, do they have a court reporter in those? What's the situation there? So I asked him, I'm like, was there somebody, sitting there typing? He said, yeah, even she thought it seemed crazy. And I was like, we got to get that. Like, we got to get the transcript there. I got to see this. And, part of it's just I want to probe and see if, he's telling me the truth on that, giving an accurate explanation of what happened. So I rushed back into the office, started making phone calls, and after a few hurdles, I got in touch with the court reporters who were handling hearings that day, and over the weekend I get the transcripts from the hearings.
Oh, nice. That's nice.
They're clear as day. Sits right there. Judge is about to order joint custody, and she panics. Says, "Wait, no, you can't do that." Judge says, like, "Why not? Why? Like, I have no reason not to here." And she's like, "He strangled him," and there's no clarification, nothing like that. And the rest of the transcripts, they don't paint her in a great light. Like, she sounds like somebody who's there, like kind of whatever the judge kind of like recommends at one point. But I get the transcripts, and that was the first big piece of evidence that I was like really trying to get to be able to impeach her on.
Nice. That's great. So let's talk about the beginning of the trial then, right? Because the trial kind of starts on the 8 of 10.
Yes. So 8 of 10, the DA hands over a rap sheet for the brother because he's going to be a witness, and turns over a Brady tip for the main deputy.
They love to do the Brady on the eve of trial, so you are left with the decision of whether you need to continue or not.
So the Brady tip in this case, there's some sort of misconduct in the officer or deputy's past, and this one actually comes with transcripts and an exact description of what happened. It was that this deputy in a 1538 hearing lied.
Okay. In suppression motion hearing. Okay. You lied one time. Just that once, though. We caught him once.
It was a one-off.
Just a one time.
He was fine all the other times.
Other times.
Totally trustworthy on this case.
Yeah, it's just once, a blip. Okay, so then, but does the trial start then on the 8 of 10 then? Or what happens?
So the DA also sees in the police report for the first time the mention of something called a SCAR report. I didn't know about it before. They didn't know about it. So they said, we're going to try to figure out what this,
a suspected child abuse report, SCAR
Yes.
acronym? Okay.
Yeah.
A SCAR report involving this incident or a separate incident?
So that's the thing that I think that the DA misunderstand. They think that this is going to be some great, report for them, showing that there's like some horrible child abuse, here in the past. But I come to learn that, oh no, this is just based off the incident. Closed it out. They did their own investigation, found it to be nothing, significant.
So it sounds like on the 8 of 10, then the DA shows up and looks at the case for the first time and says, oh my gosh, here's the Brady tip. Here's a child abuse report. Here's all these things I should have given you.
There's a rap sheet that should have come at arraignment.
This is why there's been no meaningful negotiations up until trial, because I don't even look at the case.
Yep, exactly. And it doesn't come with an offer or anything like that. Nothing new. And so they trail to the 9 and 10 the next day. And, come back tomorrow.
So you come back tomorrow then?
Yep. So come back the next day, 9 to 10. We go in the morning. We're ready to go. We make a little bit of a stink about this last minute, discovery that was handed over. Doesn't really make a huge difference. DA actually in the morning says, I'm still not ready, but in the afternoon I can be ready. And so we go into the afternoon, and finally at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, DA says, we're ready, and we get sent out.
Okay, you get sent to the master trial court or to a different trial court? How's it?
Originally, we were in one of the misdemeanor departments here in the morning on the 9 to 10, but then because they weren't going to be ready, we got sent out to one of the felony departments upstairs in Compton. And then they sent us out for trial, actually, to CCV, to the courthouse downtown.
Oh, you went to downtown? That's where this trial happened?
To a felony judge downtown.
Oh man, okay.
You went to a felony.
That sucks.
I'm sure the felony judges were super excited to see a misdemeanor case like this all the way from Compton.
Yes.
I'm sure they were welcoming and excited.
Why'd they
he was thrilled.
Why'd they send you out? Did they not have like the courtrooms available or something? Like
yeah, I guess the courthouse was just slammed with trials that day.
And you didn't want to waive. You guys didn't want to waive time to come back on a separate day because commuting to downtown LA sucks.
Yeah,
so
for the people who don't live here, that is anytime you get sent downtown when you don't live down there it's a thing.
It's like an hour and a half commute from where I live.
Minimum.
So
yeah, no matter where you're coming from.
So then, so you go downtown, you go in front of the judge and tell us
where'd you get sent?
We don't want to use any names. No names. No names.
Yeah.
Though.
It was a felony judge, been around for a while. One of the court reporter in there goes, "Oh, it'll probably sell beforehand." Everyone kind of warned me out. There'll probably be a lot of pressure.
We don't have time for this nonsense.
Yeah, they warned me there'd be a lot of pressure, to try and settle. I let client know, hey, look, they might try and really, really scare you. Like you sit in the felony courtroom and you're watching people kind of doing the pre-trial hearings before trial starts, and people, they're getting sentenced to, a decade, state prison,
life.
Yeah. And, clients kind of nudge me like, oh my gosh.
Poor guy.
But in the end, judge asked us, hey, is there a current offer? DA is like, there is no current offer. I say, I would convey a trespass. And the judge's like, okay, well, I won't make you go and ask your boss. So he decides to start.
Okay. Did the judge have a certain attitude about the case in the beginning? Was he nice? Was he just cordial to both sides? Professional?
Yeah, he was professional, cordial. I think he was annoyed to have the case, certainly, at the beginning.
Okay.
I mean, he was not eager to have this, clogging up his courtroom. And he definitely, at first I'd say maybe he was a little bit more skeptical of the defense. I think he looked for the case and thought, this is, waste of time. It's a trial. Defense, is just trying to waste my time here by.
It's always us, right? Why isn't this settled? Obviously he's guilty.
Yeah, and that's so we do 402s, the motions in limine, and it's a foregone conclusion, I think, both to the DA and I, that, okay, that obviously the custody situation is going to be a big deal here. And so the DA brings up something related to that, and the judge goes, custody battle. I don't care about that, and that's not going to be here. We're not going to talk about that at all.
Really?
And I was like, whoa, wait a second, Your Honor. This is critical, motive to lie, credibility, potential impeachment. I mean, this is so deeply intertwined with the case. I don't believe that the DA or I are going to possibly be able to keep it out. And the DA is just, so excited at the idea that it's going to be kept out that he goes, oh, no, we can definitely keep it out. We won't talk about it at all. And, the judge kind of looks at me and he goes like, oh, like what? Like what? Your whole case is going to be that this is nonsense because of the custody battle?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, yeah, it's sort of, yeah.
How could an experienced trial judge not know that criminal cases come from custody battles all the time? There could be real domestic violence or it could be light upon domestic violence, but everybody in the system knows that false allegations arise from custody battles all the time. I mean, it's ridiculous. It almost should be in the jury instructions as a factor in terms of determining credibility.
I mean, it's one of the most passionate, emotional drivers that somebody could possibly have. I sat there and basically I kind of kept arguing back and forth, no, this has to be a part of it. And it tells us, if you want to litigate custody, go to a different course. That's not what I'm trying to do. So he eventually settles with, okay, you can basically ask one question about it. And you can say, for example, isn't it true that, he showed up that night to deliver court papers? And that's it. And he said, nothing beyond that. That's all. So I walk away, it's settled, and I'm feeling really horrible about the situation. I mean,
it's a devastating blow to your defense.
Yes. It's the entire defense just got excluded. I'm sitting there looking at client, and so client, his whole family comes to court every day. Every one of these days, they're all there watching, and they're asking me, like, oh, is this important? And I'm like, oh, jeez. Yeah. So I go upstairs to the PD's office downtown, and, I'm telling people there, like, I don't know what to do. I feel terrible. Should I be telling them that you should lead on this? Because this is, I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no idea. Everyone, if they kick me in the butt, they're like, no, it'll be good. It'll be good. You'll find a way. It'll work out. And
you still have a great client that'll probably testify. So you have that.
And I've got these transcripts too.
Yeah.
I don't have them yet.
Weren't excluded as part of the 402 though. You could still talk about how she had made different statements because this is impeachment.
Well, and so that's it. So I did not bring up the transcripts yet. I didn't have them yet. They were in the works, and I was going to get them over the weekend. This is on a Friday. But yes, in my mind, I'm like, look, this can still be impeachment. He's going to hate it. The judge might in the moment go crazy, and say no if I try and sidebar to bring him in. But this is still good impeachment evidence that I should be able to find a way to get around if I can get the questions to get there.
And when she made those statements in the family court, was she under oath?
Under oath.
Oh, I mean, come on. Okay.
Was there any other interesting 402s or motions in limine that are worth talking about?
Records? Anybody have records?
Oh yeah. They decided that the brother's rap sheet unlikely to come in. It was juvenile.
Did you have any witnesses lined up?
Yes, so we turned over witness statements for the mother and the aunt. So we had those standing by as.
So they were possibly going to testify for the defense then.
Yeah, and I think going into it, that was definitely the plan. The plan was, he'll testify, his whole family will testify. That's going to be our best kind of evidence. As it goes on, It doesn't necessarily turn out that way, but that is what we learned.
And the DA was intending to bring in all of the woman's family, yes?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they decide that, we can't refer to the mother then, complaining witness by her name. We have to, do some like short version of it.
Oh yeah.
It's a DV case, yeah.
Well, and it's funny because so far, from what I've seen in my, long, many months of experience, is the DAs just include these in their motions, and they don't even realize that's one of them. And then when it gets to that section, and the judge is like, okay, I'll grant it, but then none of their evidence has been scrubbed yet, and so they end up being the ones who violate it. It happened in this trial, happened in a different trial.
The judge excludes at least limits your ability to talk about the custody dispute. You go back to the PD's office. You're like, what am I going to do? Your colleagues console you. You talk to maybe your former trainer. They're pumping you up. They tell you got it. You go home that night. You maybe do a little bit of work. And you come back for trial the next day, right?
So this is on a Friday. We call it a day. The other thing is we couldn't bring in a Brady tip from the officer. And, I really trying to make like a big deal out of it. But
that was excluded?
We had to do a sidebar before I could possibly bring it up if that deputy testified. I made sure to reserve, okay, well, I'll make sure to do that when the time comes.
Yeah.
But it's really about, the honesty of the deputies in this isn't super issue. But we also, so we do 4-2s, but we also, because it's the 10 of 10 at this point, bring in the jury to start.
On Friday.
On Friday.
Which they were also excited.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
Super dejected people who thought they almost made it through the week without getting selected on a jury. All the rejects from the other juries, right? That couldn't make it.
We need to talk about poor Peter, though. It's a Friday. He has been sent from his misdemeanor court in Compton to a felony court all the way downtown to a felony judge who is thrilled to be picking up that slack. And his defense has just been excluded. And now here comes a panel of all of these people who are like, fuck you, we thought we were out of jury duty. And now we have to walk in on a Friday and come back next week. So can we all just take a moment to recognize, because we've all been there. We've all been in that spot on a Friday afternoon. Like, everybody hates me and this is the worst and I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, so I wasn't feeling great.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And I think the jurors' feelings were pretty well reflected in some of their answers. Nothing crazy interesting about this point here, but I basically, decide that I just want people who who don't immediately trust that the system did its job and that the guy sitting there in front of them is, well, he must have done something. Otherwise, why would he be there?
People who are willing to listen. Imagine.
Yes, totally.
Did the judge start doing voir dire on Friday then, or just a little bit of pre-instructions?
So he did hardships and he asked questions of first kind of grouping of the panel, or I guess, he started. Didn't get to the end.
All right. Let me ask you. We don't have to talk about every detail of the case, but is there something about your voir dire that can you tell us about your approach to voir dire? Because I imagine so you come back on Monday, right? And you start your voir dire. Is that right?
Yeah. And so my voir dire on it, I think the big ones for me are, it's like in this case, would be, just because you think that somebody probably did something, are you going to be able to say not guilty if they didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? And are you going to have some internal conflict there? If you walk away and for whatever reason you think the evidence showed that, guy probably did it, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, are you going to be able to say not guilty? And the judge actually hated the way I did it on this one, so I need to rework maybe some wording there. And in response, he banned me from asking the question again, and then also from referring at any point in the trial, including closing, from referring to any other legal standard other than beyond a reasonable doubt.
What?
And so that meant that in my closing, I would also not be allowed to compare reasonable doubt to other legal standards.
So you couldn't do the walk them through the standards and how this is the highest legal standard.
Exactly.
Take your children away from you at the
lesser
standard.
Which I was really excited about that particular one in this case, because I thought that was going to be a big theme was the custody, and then I was going to get to my, great PowerPoint that, walks through the standards, and one of those was going to be, taking the children away, which hadn't happened.
I cannot
and
wait
so
to hear which judge this is. I think
This
I
judge
know
is
who it
annoying. This guy is so annoying.
So I'll say it started off rocky. I was not happy with maybe some of his decisions, and he was, clearly like a little annoyed with me, but the DA proved to be more annoying.
Any interesting interactions with jurors you had during voir dire?
Yeah, so one of the things I did is when they read the names of all the witnesses to the jurors, with potential jurors, to see if anybody knows them, I asked the judge to include the brother's TikTok handle to see if anybody recognized that. And first of all, like 6 people raised their hand. He's got 6.5 million followers on TikTok. He's
so
like
crazy
huge.
Hold on, you talked about it at the beginning, but I didn't want to talk about it then because it was kind of early. So when did you realize he was the TikTok star?
The client kind of mentioned it to me in passing, like, yeah, like he's on like TikTok, always doing dumb videos. And so then I kind of went home and looked it up at one point, and I realized, oh my gosh, like he actually, like, this is a job. I mean, 6.5 million followers on TikTok, like millions on Instagram. Like he's got a significant following. And what do you know, when the judge read the TikTok name, like 5 or 6 people raised their hand. And
could
said,
you tell us
I
what he
recognize.
does on TikTok? What's his shtick?
Yeah. So when I first looked it up, I thought, I'll take a quick look to see if it's like there's any like gold here for me to try and use. And I didn't see anything, because they're like dumb like POV videos where it's POV, your teacher is, I don't know, giving you a quiz or something, and he acts out.
It's crazy because I was recently having a conversation about how much things have changed in our office and how much the practice has changed in such a short amount of time. And when I did misdemeanors, I don't know, what was that, 12, 13 years ago is the last time I did misdemeanors. This was never a thing. And now you have to ask your jurors, does anyone know this TikTok famous, this content creator who's a potential witness? Like, it's crazy.
How old is he?
Early 30s, maybe.
Early 30s? Okay.
Yeah.
And he just does silly videos. Point of view videos that are just dumb.
Like little skits. He does a lot of skits.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were things that I, didn't seem relevant, but, enough followers. I was like, I'll ask the judge if he'll ask. And, judge went for it.
That was smart.
Both.
And did you have to get rid of those jurors? Were they like, yes, we love him?
So I did eventually getting rid of all of them, because a lot of them, like raised their hands, started laughing, like, I love him, like he's hilarious. and as it turns out, the bailiff actually knew him. The bailiff was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that it's so.
Oh, come on.
The bailiff was starstruck.
Yeah. So I ripped them on now, basically every day.
How ridiculous.
Yeah. But so we kind of get through, and in my volunteer, I basically, another one of the questions, I hammered on the investigation piece a lot, somebody calls the police show up, they ask the person what happened, like, what do they do next? What do you expect to happen in a police investigation? And yeah, so anything else you think needs to happen. And so I get a lot of good answers, like, well, they'd want to interview the other person. They'd want to, collect, see if there's any security cameras or any videos, things like that. And then the other one is, I just asked, and I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of doesn't usually reap such strong rewards for me, but in this one, I do, like, does anybody here, just assume that, he's guilty sitting right there, right now, like, before hearing any evidence, like, who he would vote guilty? And several people raised their hand, and like 5 people raised their hand, and I call him one of them, and I'm like, tell us why, thank you for sharing, explain that, like, why do you think that? And he tells this whole story, about how, like, my mom, is an addict, and she stays with us sometimes. We have to kick her out sometimes. And I've been watching his body language this whole time. And, his body language is exactly what she does when she's lying. And, he's clearly guilty. It's so obvious to me. So I'm like, oh gosh, like, I'm sitting like, do I need to get an entirely new panel? Because then, so another juror raises his hand. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's hear it, bring it on. And he's like, I didn't think so before, but that makes a lot of sense. Like, I totally am convinced by that.
Oh my God.
Oh, no, Peter.
Is anybody cleaning it up or saying, but can you put that aside and be fair, or you still feel that way regardless of, like, are you trying to get him kicked for cause in this moment, or what do you?
Yeah. So at this point, I'm debating asking for, like, a completely new panel. Nobody in this room can be on the jury.
Get in the pool.
Yeah, but then a little cleanup efforts are done. Like, oh, but you would. And in the end, actually, the guy who said that, I did not get kicked for cause. I had used a form of jury on, which I was pretty frustrated by whatever. In the end, though, I got so many.
That up. How did he not get kicked for cause?
They did a.
DA had to have said something to him.
They didn't ask anything specific to that point, but they asked, like, hey, like, judge goes, if I tell you, that you have to, like, keep an open mind in this case, are you going to be, fair? Oh yeah. Okay, so you're not kicked for cause. But
totally.
Then, like, the DA, he asked some silly questions. Like, his very first question, and this is when the judge, I think, starts, slowly warm up to me. I was making eyes at him when the DA, he starts his questions with, who here thinks that who here would have to see the police report in order to vote guilty? And he goes one by one, and he starts calling on every single juror and having them confirm that they don't need to see the police report in order to vote guilty. And the jurors start going crazy. They're like, wait, why don't I get to see the police report?
Yeah.
and the judge goes, like, counsel, like, drop this point. Like, this has nothing to do with anything. I don't know why you're possibly saying this. Like, and we're going to look at each other like, why is he asking this? But the jurors won't move on. So there's, again, like, a group of 3 or 4 jurors who raise their hand after, and they're asking the judge, Your Honor, why can't we see the police report? Because I kind of feel like,
evidence
yes, that I feel like I need to see it now. Like, this seems really weird. That I
hadn't thought about it till that guy mentioned it, but now I need to see it.
Yeah, and the judge goes, it doesn't matter. Like, this is the law. This is the law. I'm telling you what the law is. Like, you can't consider that.
He was so.
And one of the jurors literally gets in an argument and says, I don't. That doesn't seem fair at all. Like, I feel like that's gonna be where the honest stuff is. Like, that's gonna be the best piece of evidence.
Should be like, nope, that's not where the honest stuff is.
Exact opposite.
I feel like the judge is, like, seeing these 2 younger lawyers. Like, you're like, you ask a question, the jurors are all like, he looks guilty for all these reasons. The prosecutor's like, you can't see the police report. What? And it's just, no one's voir dire is just spiraling down.
The judge was there going, this is exactly why we don't want these misdemeanor trials.
The judge is like,
exactly. He's getting extra frustrated. In the end, though, it was. And the other piece, there's the normal, like, kind of like TV. People have personal experiences. They do a few sidebars. Have some tough conversations, tell stories, and in the end, there's so much badness that exists in this that. So I made 12 for-cause challenges when it came time for it, and 10 of them were granted in the end.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it was like a pretty significant reset of that first panel.
So you almost did get an entirely new panel.
Almost did. Yeah.
Okay. All right, then let's move on. Then let's talk about opening statements. How did your opening statement go?
Wait, tell me the breakdown of your jury.
Oh, yeah. So the jury, as it ended up, I think it was 10 men, 2 women, one of the women being, somebody who I think, lesson learned, they said, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to go to law school. I do mock trial. And I thought that would be something interesting. I thought that would be, oh, okay, maybe they'll sit here and,
That usually means they want to be a prosecutor, but cool.
Yeah, so, lesson learned. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, okay. 10 men, that's a pretty good... On a DV case, I feel like male jurors tend to be more favorable.
Yeah, and I really made a and there was a lot of men who I ended up cutting. It was just, it really came down to who here is going to assume that the system worked properly because they've only had positive experiences with the system, or would assume that, oh yeah, of course it all works as it's supposed to. And so there's cuts for that. The judge, he also asked some funny questions, like in hardships, people would try and get out of it, and they'd say it's a financial burden. He would ask him how much money, pre-tax do you make each month, and really take it into it. There was one person who he was not thrilled with even asking, who revealed that they made like $30,000 a month pre-tax, and he was like, "Why are you even asking really?" The one other thing I just remembered that day is I realized that I really want the detective who didn't do anything to testify, and he's on the witness list for the prosecution, but I realized that I don't want to. I really want him.
And you didn't have him under subpoena?
No. And so I send out a subpoena that Friday, in hopes that maybe the trial will go on for longer. The soonest I can get him subpoenaed for is the next Friday. And the judge was really eager for this trial to be done by next Thursday.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what he was super committed to, this trial is going to be done on Thursday. And so I got a subpoena for Friday, and I was like, it's probably, a moot point, but I'll try and see what happens.
All right. Well, let's talk about opening statements then. How'd that go?
Real fun starts.
Yes. So let's see. It would be. So this is Monday. We get to Monday. Have the weekend. I'm thinking about it, whatever. And that morning, but before we get to the opening statements, the DA, he turns over some transcripts for some of his exhibits that he's going to enter, and he mentions to me this thing like, oh, you're not going to bring in anything that has to do with the social media for the brother, right? And I was like, probably not. I don't have the time to, go through all that. Probably not. But I don't know. And he says, oh, okay, well, I was sitting there and I happened to see one of his videos pop up, from a month ago. And it made me think oh shoot, should I be going through all these videos? And he flags that there's he apparently saw some concerning content. And so that right there, I'm putting a pin on that, in that tonight I'm going to watch every single video that this person has ever made. It just sounds suspicious. And then he also tells me there's a new witness statement. They apparently they're now saying that client broke the mailbox.
Oh, federal offense. Okay. The uncharged federal crime. That's why it's not in this case.
Yeah.
The feds are going to pick this up afterwards.
He opened up all the mail.
How was his opening, the prosecutor?
Yeah. So opening was pretty straightforward. He tells some version of the story where client shows up, decides to take the kids by force, throws her to the ground, rips the kids away, and tries to run out with them.
Very dramatic sounding.
Yes. Very.
And then you came in. And
Yeah.
what did you say? I mean, your defense has been excluded. So what was your opening?
So in my opening, I decided to take a more aggressive approach on explaining what was going on here. And I was afraid at first that I overpromised. I went into this, whole spiel about, this case is about a lot of things, but at the end it's about justice and making sure that somebody can't weaponize the criminal system to meet their own ends, and come in and abuse the process for their own personal gain.
All right, you didn't say the words child custody, but you got the gist of it in there.
Right, I pushed the theme pretty hard without getting.
But you can bring up the papers that he went there to serve her custody papers, right?
Yeah. And so I explained, this is, our response, when he came in and he tried to deliver court papers, and, everything blew up. And then I also go in on the investigation. This is not a case that's been tested and thought out. This is, a case in which one person's statements have just been passed from person to person and ended up right here in front of you. And you, as the jury, are going to be the first people ever ever in this case to actually sit down and decide what happened here and judge the evidence and hear all sides of the story
Police didn't.
and hear every piece of evidence. Because nobody else up until this moment in front of you has actually done that. Like, there's been no due diligence. And so you are the due diligence, like in this case.
Nice. I like that. Okay, great. So let's talk about the evidence. How did it roll out for the prosecution?
Yep. So they, he plays he gets into 911 calls. He plays the body worn from the deputy's interview with her that night. Gets into photos. The kid that he knows. But as she's kind of going through, she starts saying a bunch of stuff. The mother does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So this is the first witness.
Yeah.
And it's the mother of the child, the alleged victim here. And she's just like kind of like offhandedly saying things that are completely contradict kind of what the situation was before. And the first of those being, he's like, okay, so what happened? And in her testimony in court, she says, oh, he just barged into the house. He showed up with no notice and no permission and just barged into the house uninvited and, did this. But then within the direct, in the body worn video that the DA plays, she then tells deputies, oh yeah, like he knocked on the door. My parents answered it. They let him in. And
So she's impeaching herself.
Yes.
We didn't even wait till cross before she started falling apart.
Exactly. I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense.
And then you're looking at the jury like, are you guys catching this?
Yeah.
Wait, but the prosecutor didn't play the video. You just know in the video she's saying something different.
No, the prosecutor played the video.
Played the video? So she says he came in and barged in, and then the prosecutor then plays the video of her saying that he knocked on the door and the grandma let him in.
He was focused on some like other, I guess, aspect of it and didn't realize that he actually says that.
All right.
Another one is, he has her confirm how she's holding the son, and he locks her in, really strong. He's like, you're grabbing your son as tightly as you possibly can. And, you've got him your arms are wrapped around him, both arms wrapped around, holding him as tight as you possibly can. And she's like, yes, yes. And, he confirms that the couch, that she's up against the couch, and he tries to include, a little bit of flourish, that, and you're like up against the couch, trying to get as far away as possible from, the defendant. And she's like, yes, I was, as far away as I could get. And then he goes in on the left arm, and he's like, the left arm, over and over. Then he brings up the photo, and he says, this is your left arm, right? Yeah. And you can see injury here, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, it's so red. Like, he grabbed you by the left arm and threw you to the ground. Yes.
Wait, you're letting all these leading questions happen, by the way?
I was making a lot of objections here.
I was
not
like,
a lot were being sustained.
Okay,
I thought
all right.
he was telling the story.
I mean, yeah. How's this going?
There's a lot of hearsay and a lot of leading happening in this direct, but
basically testifying for her.
Yeah, and there's also a number of things that I was like pretty excited to be hearing coming out of their mouths on direct. So there were some things that I was kind of letting go. But then also, he confirms with her that, she was on the phone with 911 when it happened, and that she was talking to 911 the whole way through. And then she also adds in some like new injury, that there was injury to the chin and lip, which
to her chin and lip.
Oh, sorry, to the son's chin.
Okay.
In addition to bloody nose.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I guess it seemed like the first time he was showing the photos, and he's like, and there's redness on the lip and the chin too, right? She's like, yeah. Hard for me to see it, but okay. So that kind of, it's like pretty straightforward, direct, kind of goes through the whole situation. But there's like these number of points I'm sitting there going crazy about, like, oh, this is incredible. And so first thing, I start off with, you said that, he barged in. Yeah. And, he wasn't invited at all. No. But isn't it true that, your mom actually let him in? Yes. And I say, oh, but you really? And she says, well, he let his mom in. And so I'm like, okay, so she let the mom in, but not him. Okay, whatever. And didn't he text you 30 minutes before he arrived? Yeah. So so it wasn't unannounced. And she goes, well, told him not to come. And I said, oh, but you knew he was coming. Yeah, okay. And then I talked to her about the phone. And first I talked to her about the couch. And I'm like, okay, so you said that, you were so scared and you were trying to hide, like, get as far away as possible from him, right? Yeah. And you were facing the couch, yeah, and it's an L-shaped couch, yes. And that left arm of the couch is jutting out to your left. And she says, yeah. And so I'm like, so you're up against that couch as far away as you can get from him, yes. And so there's no space whatsoever between you and the couch. No. So then how did he come and grab you from the left side and throw you to the ground? And she goes, oh, well, I don't know if it was the left side or not. It could have been the right side. I don't really remember. And I'm like, but didn't you just point to your left arm in the photo saying, like, that's the marks from him throwing you from the left? And she says, I don't know. Like, I don't really remember that well. And so I'm like, okay, noted. And then and you had your arms wrapped around him, as tight as you possibly could. You're trying to, keep him from being gripped away from you. Yes. And, you're gripping really hard. Yeah. And you're on the phone with 911. She says, yeah. And I'm like, which hand are you using to talk to 911 with? And she stops for a second. She's like, oh, I was holding it, between my shoulder and my head. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, and the prosecutor, he just played the 911 call for us, right? Yeah. And you tell, dispatchers, oh, he just pushed me. Yeah. Did you hear anywhere in that phone call any sounds of, you hitting the ground? He says, well, no, I don't know. Okay. And so he threw you to the ground, right? Yeah. And it was pretty hard. Yeah. And hard enough that it seemed to have hurt your son. Yeah. But the phone stayed in between your ear and your shoulder that whole time. Yeah. So it never fell. No, like never hit the ground. No. And there's no sound whatsoever from, the push or the fall. It's just like, no, I don't know.
Are you having fun at this point? It feels good, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is everything about it was just going too clean.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point even, I repeat for some other point, like, and so you don't know which side, he grabs you, and DA goes, misstates testimony. And so I look at her and I say, ma'am, do you know which side he grabbed you on? She goes, no. And so then I ask her about the injury too. I'm like, oh, so the bloody nose, like, you say, Mr. C, he did this to your son, right? Yes. And it was when he threw you to the ground. Yes. But you testified that what happened is he threw him to the ground and then he grabbed him by the arm. And that's how he got injured, was him pulling on his arm to pull him off the ground. And she goes, yeah. I'm like, so then how did him pulling on the arm give your son a bloody nose? And she goes, oh, well, I don't actually know how he got the bloody nose. And so I'm like, you don't know how?
Wait, that's
how do you know it? How do you know it was Mr. C then? And she goes, oh, well, I don't. I couldn't really see anything. And so I go, wait a second. So you can't tell me how's it going? Can you tell me who at all did this? And I said, you're just assuming that it was him? She says, yes. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, what assumption are you making here? And she just says, well, he didn't have a bloody nose before. He had it after.
Did the custody thing come up at all in the cross-examination?
So that's what we're getting to the end of the day, and I kind of hit her on all like the main inconsistencies, and I decide like, okay, this is the time I'm gonna try and lock her in to see if I can get this transcript in there. And I sit there and I say like, see, man, you've told us everything there is to know about what happened that night, right? Yeah. You've told us everything that Mr. C did to your son, right? Yeah. And there's nothing more you want to say. No. You spoke to police, 4 times that night. You spoke to an investigator 2 weeks later. You spoke to the prosecutor yesterday. You testified on direct this morning, and you just answered my questions on cross. And you've told us everything, right? Yes.
I like the setup.
And so then I go, okay, Your Honor, sidebar. Like I'd like a sidebar. So I go over, I grab the transcript, and I walk over to the judge, and we're doing the sidebar right there. I'm like, Your Honor, I have transcripts from a family court proceeding from 2 weeks ago, in which she claims that he actually strangled the son in this incident. And the judge is like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, this is like.
The judge is like, I just want to go home. I want you out of my courtroom.
I think he sees the writing on the wall here, but he knows he has to come in. But he's like, okay, we're gonna recess for 10 minutes, and I'll review the transcripts. The prosecutor will review the transcripts. We'll come back. So we take a recess. They both review the transcripts. We come back.
By the way, the prosecutor doesn't have a right to review your impeachment evidence, or do they? I mean, can they review your transcripts? I mean, I feel like impeachment's impeachment. Like,
I wouldn't object to that. Honestly, he doesn't have to turn it over ahead of time for sure. But at the time where he wants to impeach her, I think that we need to let them review that.
If he wants to see exactly.
Okay, you're probably right.
But we go back, and I tell the one concern that basically that the judge brings up and the DA brings up is, oh, how do we know that she's talking about this incident? How do we know she's not talking about some other different time?
Fair question.
And the judge kind of looks at me and is like, look, Your Honor, I think that in the context of the transcript, it's pretty clear. I think if you read the whole thing, there's not much question. I think that we all read this and we probably came to the same conclusion. Even though if in that one statement it doesn't say that night he did that, and the judge is like, okay, well you're kind of taking a risk there, because what if you ask this question and she says that was actually a different time.
Incident,
yeah, he strangled my son on a different day, and
right.
It's super fair. And so I kind of sit there, and judge kind of looks at me, and I kind of look at the client, and I tell him, look, I just realized, like, look, the process is going really well. Like we'd actually done basically like 90% of what we possibly wanted to do in this situation anyways. Like, if there is any chance whatsoever that the answer is not going to be what we want it to be here, like, we gotta not do this. We gotta not do it. He's like, no, like, this 100%. There's 0% chance it's about anything else. Like,
well, not that. Listen, because if she's gonna say, oh, that was a different time. Okay, a different time that you only brought up in the family law court. You didn't call the police. You never reported to anybody beforehand. So you're saying it happened, but just not. All right. Okay. That.
Yeah, and that's a whole host of other questions of oh, if there's a different incident and we're just hearing about it.
You're just fucking lying. That's
yeah.
But go ahead. So go ahead.
Liar that lies.
Yeah.
so I go back to her, and in the transcript she also talks about, like, how she was talking to her attorney about it. But then also in the transcript she says that the only attorney she has is the district attorney. So I'm also like, okay, so what, the district attorney has witness statements from you claiming a whole different incident that they didn't turn out for? Like, but so she's clearly lying about that too.
Yeah.
Or the DA is. And so I ask her, I say, man, like, you talked about what happened this night at a family court hearing 2 weeks ago, didn't you? Yes. And in that hearing, you talked about your attorney. You don't have an attorney other than the district attorney, right? No. The only attorney that you have is the district attorney. Yes. And when you talked about this incident in the family court hearing, isn't it true that you actually claimed there that Mr. C strangled your son? And she goes, yeah. And the judge looks at her and goes, ma'am, was this under oath? And she just goes, yeah. And so I'm like, and then is there a reason why you use such inflammatory language and claims there that said nothing about that ever anywhere else? And she goes, I don't know.
Wait, was that your question or the judge's question?
That was my question.
Why you use such inflammatory questions or in the context of the family law court? She says, I don't know.
Yeah. And she's like, I don't know. And basically, it blows up, like, this whole thing. She's sitting there and she's really embarrassed about it. And you meant strangled, right? Yeah. And so we stopped there, and I can't think of anything else to ask here, because I'm like, there's no need.
I mean, listen, to recap, she's just admitted that she made this other statement while she was under oath after telling you that she had said everything that happened. She has admitted she's in fact not sure where she was grabbed or how she was grabbed or where the injuries might be, and that she doesn't even think or know that your client's the one that caused the bloody nose on the baby, right? Like, I mean...
Yep. She admits she doesn't remember what happened to her. She admits that she doesn't know what happened to the son, and she admits that she's lied under oath in a family court hearing. So
yeah, and it's not just that she lied under oath, but she lied under oath about this incident after, which happened at the end of her testimony, after she was caught on direct lying about him barging in. And after you walked her through all of the other stuff, like, well, obviously she's not telling the truth about anything that happened here either. I mean, this couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And I didn't want to push my luck with the judge, so I didn't get into the broader context of the transcript, and talk about how it was immediately in response to, the order by the judge. But so I kind of ended direct with asking her, you live with your family, you're all very close, you work together, and you would do anything for them, right? Yeah. And they would do anything for you. Yeah. And like you would say anything for each other. Yeah. And so end off on that. And so it's like it's close-ish to the end of the day, not quite there. But so the DA stands up, for redirect, and he just goes, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar? And this is his 15th sidebar of the trial. He just kept asking for sidebars left and right. And the judge's like, oh my God, what is it possibly going to be? And so he says, okay, we'll recess for the day, sends the jury out, and it's just us in there. And he's like, what? Like, what do you want to ask about? And he goes, well, Your Honor, I'm just not really convinced that, she was talking about this incident when she said strangle. I think that she may have been talking about a different incident. So I just want to make sure it's okay if I ask her if she's talking about a different incident. And he looks at him, and the judge is just like, do you have any factual basis whatsoever to ask this question? Like, are you telling me that in a DV case the district attorney's office has had for months? What, you've never asked her if there's been any other incident? And you have no factual basis whatsoever to put that question forward. You're just going to sit there fishing, hoping that something that's helpful to you comes out. And then he just rips into him, like, you have, ethical obligations as a prosecutor. In this case, the defense attorney, they have obligations to their client and to represent their client. You, sir, have a higher standard. You have to come into this courtroom and represent, the government, blah, blah. And in this courtroom, you will be held to those, ethical obligations. Like, you will not be doing that in my courtroom. Like, if you want to go home, and ask her outside of court, oh, what's she talking about? That incident or different, be my guest. But if you come in tomorrow, just think about what that's going to look like to the jurors. If you overnight, magically out of nowhere, come up with a brand new domestic violence incident that was never mentioned before, right after she was impeached, about a prior under oath transcript. Like, okay, you go and do that.
Now who's having a bad day?
Yes. And so I'm sitting there, doing everything I can not to, stand up, smile.
You're like on cloud 9 right now, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Like...
I skipped out of the courtroom up to the, 19th floor, telling everybody, guess what just happened?
This is on Tuesday? Or was this on Tuesday or Wednesday?
This is
Monday.
Still Monday. Okay.
Yes.
Monday.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
See how this prosecutor thinks he can clean this up.
So just real quick, so Peter, on the first day, you go up to the 19th floor public defender's office, and you're like, fuck, my whole defense has just been fucking canned. What the hell am I going to do? And then the next day, you go up there skipping along the hallways.
You didn't even need the elevator.
You just went straight up.
Just levitated.
The ups and downs of this job, dude, like.
One of the trials at CCP, one of the other trials, he's like, you have no idea how live you are. And that's, over the weekend I kept telling myself, like, oh yeah, I can't see the light yet, but I'm sure it's going to turn around.
Okay, so what happens the next day then?
Yeah, so end that day, feeling great. I'm like, oh, this is going really well. But okay, another challenge is ahead of us. A corroborating witness, the brother, social media superstar. Yes.
Yeah. And have you ever cross-examined a celebrity before, or is this something new? Are you nervous? Like,
this is my first. Yeah.
I mean, millions of is he live streaming this? Point of view from a witness. Like.
Well, I did I made sure every day after court, watch his stories, see if he was posting anything about the case, and then. But so that night though, I'm sitting there and I'm pretty happy with how things are going. I'm like, okay, I'm like, for this cross, I just need to, avoid like landmines, like whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch all those videos. I'm going to see what he's got on there, see if there's anything good. Because the DA literally flagged to me, I feel a little weird about it. So I go through and I watch every single video he's ever posted. And
like how many videos? How many?
I mean, hundreds and hundreds.
Wow. Okay.
It was
That's a great night.
and look, there might be other people who enjoy it. It is not my cup of tea.
After a whole day in trial too.
Did you just feel stupid afterwards? Just felt dumb, right? Just dumber.
Look, I was feeling pretty dumb, but then I started getting to the end, and I started coming across this series of videos that the theme is corporal punishment basically, and it's a POV, and it's like POV, you just got home late from curfew, like your parents are waiting for you after curfew, and he's holding a belt, and I'm like, that's kind of, I don't really know what I'm going to do here, but I'm going to take a screenshot of that one. Mm-hmm. And then there's like 3 other. So I found these 4 different videos that are all like, POV, your report card just came back. And, it's like him holding a belt, pretending to be the parent. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to screenshot those, keep them for later. I'll come back. And then I get to the very end, like 3rd video from the end, is a video in which the complaining witness, the mother of the son, the alleged victim here, is acting. And she's acting out a fake 911 call where she's screaming, crying, calling 911. It's in Spanish, but, it's pretty obvious what's happening. And then it pans to, it's like some skit about, the kid being hurt. And then it pans at the end to a video of the son, in this case, like screaming, crying, looking legitimately very upset. And it's all part of the skit. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds exactly like what the 911 call was.
Oh, really? It's not the same vibe and tones and.
Yeah, I mean, like the screaming, the crying, the random.
How long
it's the same
ago?
person.
How long ago was it posted?
It was old. It was 2022, so it was a little old, and it's not directly on point, but I'm like, oh, this is like, there's something here. Like there's like,
practice is what it was.
Like she's acted out, in one call before, they show like some disregard, I think, for probably like the health and safety of the son there by like subjecting him to like apparently like making him upset for the videos and this and that.
The seriousness of that kind of situation, there's a disregard for that.
Yes, the kind of whole approach to it all just it made it feel very like cavalier. Mm-hmm. And so I screen record the video, but it's in Spanish, and so I'd have to get it transcribed to use it. And in the screen recording, you can see it's like 10:30 at night, in the lower left corner. And I send it to a couple of different transcribers, and I'm like, hey, is there any chance, like, obviously I don't have an appointment order or anything at that point, but like 1-minute videos, is there any chance that you could like help me out and try and do this? Like, I'm going to be crossing the witness, tomorrow morning.
In between the lines with David Perez?
And
David
so,
Perez?
So right? What do you know? Shout out in between the lines, David Perez comes through at like 9 a.m. the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
As always.
And he says, like, look, it's 1 minute. I'll take care of it. He's like, I can get it to you by 11. And I'm like, okay, maybe 11 will work. Hopefully it won't be too late. And again, I'm still not totally sure. I'm like trying to figure out, what it is. So I draft out some questions and kind of have them ready. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll be able to get that stuff. And I print it all out. I save the screen recording. So then, whatever. So the next day, morning starts, and we're still on the first witness. So there's the redirect of the first witness, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, so how is he going to save this? How's he going to explain the strangling, the alleged strangling? And what's he going to say? And so I was kind of prepared for him to come in, trying to allege a new incident or something like that. But instead, he goes in and first, he reconfirms for some reason that it was in fact her left arm.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, we're talking about the redirect of the mother right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Redirect of the mother,
okay.
victim.
All right.
And he goes in and first he reconfirms that it was her left arm for some reason, even though, she admitted to the physical impossibility of the left arm and then said that she didn't actually know which arm. So that I thought was odd on his part, rather than trying to pivot from that. And then instead of trying to allege a new incident, so great, he instead tries to say that she actually issued a clarification later in the transcript. And so I see him and her, they're sitting down, on the benches, and they walk through the entire transcript together. And, he reads it with her and talks to her. And so she goes up on the stand and he says like, oh, like when you said strangle, you didn't mean strangle, right? No. And you actually clarified later in the transcript that that's not what you meant, right? And she's like, yeah. And he says, you said he put hands on him. And that's what you meant. That was a clarification, right? And she goes like, yeah. And he says, how did you feel when you were making the statement? No. And so I object to relevance. And, finally, an opportune moment, it's sustained. And he says, okay, he's trying to get her to say that she was like scared or nervous, I think, to explain why she said something different. And so he uses a terrible choice of words and he says, what was the context in which you said this? And opens up, she starts talking about how there's like, this court case and how like they were going to do this or that and starts talking about it. And he kind of cuts her off.
Mr. DA.
Yep. And so he's like, stop. Like, okay, that's enough. And so for recross, I'm like, oh, let's go. This is great.
Well, you can't stay out now. He opened the door.
Exactly. And so first, I hammer the physical impossibility again of like, he just reconfirmed it was the left arm, but didn't you say it was impossible that it was left arm? Like, how could it have possibly been? You said that you were all the way up against the couch on the left side. And she's like, yes. So I'm like, again, he just reconfirmed something that you are saying is wrong. And so does that. And then I sit there and with the transcript. I'm like, man, you just sat down to the prosecutor right over there just earlier today, right? Yeah. And you read through the entire transcript of that family court hearing. Yes. And you went line by line and discussed what you said. Yes. Could you, if I give you a copy of that transcript right now, could you point to where you clarify that Mr. C actually didn't strangle your son? And she goes, well, no. Like, it's not that it was a clarification. I go, oh, so it wasn't a clarification. No. I was like, what was it then? She says, I was just like saying more stuff. Oh, you're just saying more. So you're just adding on to the strangling, not clarifying. Yes. Oh, okay. And so then I said, and you mentioned the context. The prosecutor asked you about the context in this case. Like the context, isn't it true that the context was that immediately before you said that, the judge was against your desires going to order you to have joint custody of the kids? And she goes, yeah. And she was going to make you exchange the kids on neutral territory, right? Yeah. And you said this in response to try and stop her from doing that. Yeah. And
wow, she admitted to that.
Yeah. So admits that like there's this whole other context, where she's trying to like bring this in for the custody battle. And so that goes like, great. I get in everything that I didn't think I'd be able to get in. And I'm like looking at the judge like, I got you there.
Is the judge looking? Is he looking back at you?
Yeah, he's like shaking his head because he originally was like, and if you think this is like you're gonna open the door to something, I hope you know that like opening the door happens maybe 1% of the time. That's not a thing. Opening.
Yes, it is.
Well, this entire case is coming in through the open door. But so then I finished the recross of her, and I just because it's the next morning, and I say like, okay, so you and your brother live together. You mentioned, right? Yeah. And so after you testified yesterday, I'm guessing you went home and you stayed at the same house as your brother, right? And she goes, oh, well, no, we're not staying together right now. And I'm like, oh, you're not? Okay. So you didn't sleep there last night? No. But you talked to your brother, didn't you? And because it turns out, they posted a story on Instagram where they were together at a Dodgers game.
That night?
So the night before. And so I'm like, but you talked to your brother last night at some point, right? Yeah. And I'm going to guess you probably talked to him about, your experience in court, right? Yeah. And I'm going to guess that you talked to him about the questions I asked you, right? Yeah. And so she admits to then talking to the other witness about all the questions that I asked her. And I'm like, okay.
Nice setup. That's a great setup for the next witness.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the judge. I'm like, well, already it's inappropriate, but whatever. I'll withhold. And so we finished with her, the brother, the TikTok star. He goes out for direct and walks through it all. It's pretty straightforward. He claims that, that the kids were set down in the end and weren't kidnapped just because, he said, do things the right way. Don't do them the wrong way. And he just immediately, says, oh, you're so right. And sits on the kids, moves on. So I thought that was a little ridiculous. But it gets to cross, very first questions on cross. did your sister stay at your house last night? Yes. And did she tell you about the questions I asked her? No.
Totally.
So I'm looking at the jury. I'm like, wow, interesting. Okay. Good to know. And so then, I sit there and I ask him like, oh, you're how many times, was the kid picked up and put down by different people? Because I'm trying to explain, it's a chaotic environment, bloody nose or whatever could come from like any number of people or actions or things. And he says, oh, the only person that ever picked him up was, the defendant. And I'm like, really? Didn't you just explain that like at one point the sister picked him up? He says, oh, well, yeah, but she picked him up one time. And then didn't you say that you picked up the kids at one point? Yeah, but I didn't like pick them up aggressively. Oh, okay, you picked them up. And then at one point, didn't the mother grab the kids out of her arms? Yeah, okay, yeah. And I said, oh, so you said it was just one time, but isn't it more like 5 or 6? And he says, okay, sure, yeah. I guess so he was passed around a lot. Well, no, it was just him. I said, you just said that it was more than him. But
So I mean, at this point, you have the complaining witness saying she doesn't know that the injury came from your client. She just assumed. And now you have the brother explaining that this kid was, in fact, being sort of yanked and passed between a bunch of different people.
Yeah. And he then, at the end of that line, admits that, oh, he doesn't actually know how the bloody nose happened either.
Excellent.
And he's not sure how the kid got hurt. Perfect. And so that part, so if they're going to find him guilty on the child abuse, it's because they're going to make up something or like, pull something from the rest of it. It's got nothing to do with the bloody nose.
At some point, did you just look at the judge like, can we just go straight to the 11-18? Like, this is ridiculous. They have nothing. We don't know how he got the injury. Okay, what are we doing here then?
And that's, I was getting advice, like get that 11-18 ready. This might actually be, a good case. Like he sat there and he asked the judge was like, you were under oath when you said the strangling? And she was like, yes. But then with the brother, I asked him at one point, like, oh, you're really close to your nephew, right? Like, try and, you don't want to lose custody either because you guys all live together. And he says like, oh, well, no, I don't really know him that well. I'm like, what? Like, why? And he tries to like downplay like how close he is with him. And I'm like, what? Like, don't you all live together? He says, oh, well, like I work a lot. I'm like, but you work as I'm like, you're an influencer though, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so you work from home? And he says, yeah. So what do you mean you work too much to be close with them? It was just like, there's a bunch of weird stuff like that like he was like fighting me on and being really annoying about.
Did you end up playing the video though of them faking an incident?
Yeah. So we go through it and I decided, I'm going to go for the social media stuff. Let's see what happens. And so I'm like, you said that your sister, is just behind the scenes on the social media stuff, right? Yeah. She just helps with like brand deals, things like that. Yeah. So she would never act in one of your videos, right? No. And in your videos, you would never make light of the physical abuse of children, right? No. And you would never intentionally upset your nephew just to get views, right? No. And you and your sister certainly never made a video where you pretend to call 911 and your nephew was upset, there in the background, right? No. Okay, well, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce it, as defense.
Turn the lights down, cue it up.
Yeah. And so I bring in the screenshots of the belt videos. And I'm like, sir, this is you, right? Yeah, and this is one of your videos. Yep. And it says here, POV, your parents are waiting for you and you're late for curfew. Yep. Yeah. And you're holding the belt. Yep. And the implication is that you're hitting the kid with the belt, right? Yeah. So he says yes on the first two. We get to the third one. Implication is that you're hitting the belt, right? He says, no, that's not the implication. Oh, it's not the implication. What's the implication then? He said, there is no implication. It's just a prompt. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like, it's left up to the viewer to decide. He says, yes, exactly. It's left up to the viewer. Oh, okay. So like they could think that, the belt's for holding up your pants, or they could think that you're hitting the kid with the belt, right? No, it's like, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. And he's like yelling at me, the judge is having to like tell him like, sir, like stop. And he's like going crazy about the whole thing. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I go, let me move on to the video. And so then the second I start to like go for a video, DA is like, sidebar, no, I got to see this video first. And so we do a sidebar, I sit there, I put up the computer, I play the video. And you even
What was the
watching-
judges when the DA and judge watched the video and the sidebar? What was their reactions?
So the DA, before the video was even played, was going, "It's overly prejudicial. There's no probative value here." Like,
Well,
and then he goes on this whole thing. So basically with the transcript, it was literally 5 minutes before I started my cross. David Perez sends the transcripts, and I get them. And so I have to ask the judge, like, could we recess for 5 minutes before cross? I just need to run upstairs. I printed something. I need to grab it right now. So I sprint upstairs, get the 20 copies of it or whatever, come sprinting back down, and the DA goes, "Your Honor, he clearly prepared this. Like, this is what he went up to go and get from the printer. Like, he was ready for this. This isn't like, suddenly impeachment." I was like, "Your Honor, if you look at the screen recording, one, it says 10:30 at night. And two, if I just printed the transcripts, I wasn't very prepared. Not to mention the fact that I wouldn't be able to bring this in if the client or if the witness hadn't lied on the stand about
also,
what
that's
happened."
my job. Like,
Yes, like,
I am
to be prepared
for my case. Guilty.
So we watched the video, and I think that the judge at this point, like, if things hadn't been going, I think as well for us at this point, I think he would have shut it down and been like, "Stop, you're grasping at straws. Like, this is ridiculous." But I think that the inertia was so much, in our direction. Like, look, these people up here are jokers. Like, they're just going on the stand, they're lying about anything and everything they can. They're just saying what's convenient. That he and in response to like the pretty weak objections was like, whatever. Like, okay, you can bring it in. And so I played the video, and the witness he sees what it is, and he looks at the jury and he just like starts laughing, like, "Ah, see, it's funny." And then I'm just staring at him like stone faced. And halfway through the video, he just starts yelling at me, "Why are you allowed to show this? You shouldn't be showing this. Like, judge, stop him." And the judge tells him, like, "Sir, stop. You are not asking the questions in this hearing. Like, you are being asked questions." Like, and we keep going. And this, like, the video's playing, the jury's watching it, but they're listening to us. And the witness goes, "It's a joke. It's a joke. It's funny. It's not real. It's funny." And I said, I'm like, "Oh, this is funny, sir?" And I said, "Oh, so do you think it's funny to make fake 911 calls?" No. "Do you think the physical abuse of children is funny?" And he's like, No, that's not what it is. And I'm like, he said, "It's not funny. It's just a skit." And I said, "Didn't you say that your skits are funny?" And he's like so angry. He's like, Stop. Like, he's yelling at me, going crazy to the judge, like, damn. And so then I'm like, after that, I'm standing there.
I mean,
I'm
your
like,
jurors must have just been riveted by the craziness of what's happening in this courtroom. This
they were
sounds
all
like
sitting there
something out
wide-eyed.
of A bad TV show.
Yes.
We all watch those legal TV shows where there's courtroom drama, and we're like, this doesn't happen in real life. It's happening in your case.
It was happening right there. I mean, I couldn't believe I didn't like the
influencer having a meltdown.
So angry. So I just kind of sit there and I'm like, Your Honor, I got nothing else. Like, that's it. And I can't think of a single other question to ask. And this is right before lunch. Because each of these keeps happening before a break, where normally, if things weren't going well, I'd maybe try and, draw it out to get the break to try and think of more or whatever. And I don't want to give them the advantage, but I was like, look, do your worst. Do your worst. What are you going to respond to this with?
You're not cleaning this up.
Yeah. And so then one of the days, the DA, they kept turning over all the last minute stuff. And I just got pretty peeved at one point. And, I'm normally pretty, relaxed, easygoing relationship with them. He drops the mailbox thing on me, and I just go off on him. I'm like, what? Do you have a witness there? What time? Where were you? Like, is this going to come in writing, or are you just going to, just keep dropping evidence on me left and right, or you just dropping things left and right? Like, is this the way you practice? I got so angry about it, and he was so offended by me being upset about the late witness statements. And so during lunch after this, he walks by because he goes and he kind of powwows with the family to talk to them about the video. And he walks by me and goes, "Hey, counsel, they just told me it was your client who filmed the video. How's that for a witness statement?" And storms off. And I'm like, come on, okay. Was it him? I'm like, so I asked him, "Do you film it?" He said, "No, that's not. No, he didn't film the video." But he storms off. I'm like, whatever. If that's what he's going to come with, not that big of a deal. So we come back after lunch. First question on redirect is, "Sir, do you remember who filmed this video?" Witness looks at him and just goes, I'm not 100% sure now. I don't know. And the DA just sits there like staring for like 60 seconds like, oh my gosh, like what am I supposed to do here?
You can't fix it, bro.
The thing is, it really is just a stupid video. I mean, she didn't really call 911. She's pretending to call 911, right?
Yes.
I mean, probably. So it's a stupid video that you got in because it's funny and kind of insinuates something, but it's not really evidence of, it's just other than them acting it out. When they're acting and making up allegations, they sound this way, and here they're making up allegations and they sound the same way.
Remember, Peter set it up, though, and was like, you'd never make a video like this, and the complaining witness never participates, and you don't make it. So,
but of course he's going to say that. Like,
nah.
he has hundreds of videos. It's from like 3 years ago. He's not going to remember like his stupid video from 3 years ago. Like,
but to that point, like, I'd be the first to admit that I don't think the video itself was, some bombshell, but it was everything that surrounded it. Like the way he responded, the fact that I was able to impeach him and show that he wasn't honest about that in the first place. It
became relevant because of the witness, not because of the content of the video.
They could have made me look like a fool in that situation, no problem. If they had been like professional, if they hadn't been the people who they were, both the witnesses and the DA in this case, they could have handled this in a way that made me be like, he's distraught. Like, this is like ridiculous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the DA then goes in and asks trying to say your client recorded the video, who cares if he recorded it or not? Like, and now the witness didn't answer how he wanted him to, and he doesn't know what to do, as if that was really going to be like really ruin your defense.
Change everything.
You just change everything.
And then, so he asked that question, then he asked one other question. The one other question is, and sir, how old is this video? And witness goes, oh, it's like really old, like maybe 5 years old. And I look at client, we look at each other because it was the nephew's 4th birthday last week, the week before. And so I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I don't even stand up. I just look at the guy and say, sir, like, isn't it true that it was your nephew's 4th birthday just last week? And he goes, yeah. And I say, oh, so he was negative years old at the time of filming this?
Objection argumentative.
and he starts like yelling at me, getting angry again, like arguing. I'm like, whatever.
I love it, though, because that's one of the jury instructions, right? I mean, not only do you have his words and you can show his statements are inconsistent for his believability, but they talk about his demeanor. So you have all of these examples in front of the jury of his demeanor when confronted with the truth of a situation or his own dishonesty, how he behaves. I love it.
And that's what, in the end, in the closing, I bring in the witness, like the considerations of the witness reliability. Yeah. And for both of them, I had every single thing that the caligram lays out for, what to consider. I had the factor and exactly what they did. And I mean, they teed it up perfectly.
I mean, did the prosecutor even try and call any other witnesses?
Yes. So at this point, what I realized, after we come back after lunch, and I look over and I see on his computer he's working on his closing PowerPoint. And we were not supposed to be closing that day. That was not the goal.
Get me out of here.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so what he does, he calls two of the 3 deputies. 3 deputies responded. There's a primary who had the Brady hit. And then there's the secondary and the third.
Are either one of these the one that you wanted?
No. None of them are the one that I wanted. But he calls in, 2 deputies. And neither of them are the primary who had the Brady hit. So he got so spooked, I guess, by the Brady hit that he didn't want to bring the primary in. But so I sit there and I'm asking him questions, like how many follow-up questions did you ask? Did you try and, when she reenacted it, did you try and, understand how exactly it happened? Or did you just dictate exactly everything? And they both of them were like, oh, I don't really know. Like, it was really the primary who was doing everything. And I was like, oh, really? So that's who would actually know about this, right? Yeah. They know much better than you, like what happened and the steps that were taken.
So you're irrelevant and shouldn't be here.
And I was like, and do you know where she is today? No, we don't. And then one of them, the first one, I had found in the body worn in the background, there was a little like baby monitor looking camera that was sitting at the TV pointed directly at the couch in the living room where the incident allegedly occurred.
Oh.
And you can just see it sitting there. Yeah. It's a baby monitor. I have a baby monitor. How many records things? And so I kind of screenshotted it and I showed it to one of the deputies. And I'm like, this is the living room, right? Where, you were. And he goes, oh, I don't know. Oh, you don't know if this is the living room? He says, no, my back was facing that area. I'm like, oh, so your back was facing this area? And he's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if that's it or not. I'm like, what? And the judge and the DA, they're like, move on, counsel. He doesn't remember. I'm like,
oh, come on.
But then I remember that the only reason that was the screenshot I used was because that one was more zoomed in, like closer to the camera, because I thought they would fight on whether or not it was a camera. And so I actually have a second screenshot sitting on counsel table that actually has this deputy in the frame standing right next to the camera. and so I'm like, okay. And I kind of walk over, grab it, walk back, and I say, now, that's you in this screenshot, right? He says, yeah. Do you recognize it now? Yeah, okay. And I'm like, and do you know what that is right there? He says, oh, it's a video camera. Yeah. Did you ever try and get the footage on that? No. Did you ever, even try and watch it? No. Wouldn't that have been really helpful to know? Yeah. It's the whole thing. I mean, it's beautiful. So basically, DA just races through these.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that he wants to end these witnesses because he just wants to put me in a bind of not being ready. Because I'm not prepped with client on him testifying yet. The two witnesses that we were going to call aren't there that day. And obviously, I don't have a closing right
Well, and he's living in a dumpster fire right now. He's trying to pull the
Yes.
ripcord. Get
Yeah,
out of here.
He's doing whatever he can just to end this as fast as possible, and hope that he catches me off guard. And so people rest, and judge looks at me like, okay, defense, like, what's your case? And I'm like, I'm not ready for anything. So I asked for a quick recess. I recess. I talked to, I explained, like, look, I know what my closing is going to be. I could do my closing right now if I have to. And we also, we know what we do on direct, so we could do that. And I don't necessarily know that I want anybody to testify at this point either, because we've kind of done everything we possibly need to do. And
You have won this case already.
Yeah, I think there's already a distraction.
By the way, real quick, but before the defense case, though, you did 11-18 motion to dismiss.
Yes, I was just about to say, I did the 11-18, and it was just perfunctory. Judge did it in a sidebar.
Okay.
Didn't have, right? He was like, no, did not.
Not even the child abuse case? I mean, the prosecutor hasn't put up any evidence that your client did anything.
It's all kind of vague, and
It's not even a question for the jury. What happened to this kid? How did he get his injury? No one fucking knows. Okay, how are we charging anybody with this then?
Yeah, and that's what I've been in, maybe the 11-18 might work here, but he was like, no, moving on. So just kind of dismisses out of hand.
Okay.
So,
all right. So back to the defense. So you're thinking about just resting then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, man. I kind of sit down, maybe we should just rest, and I just, if we get to my closing, I'll just do a closing, because I know, they're liars. I have it all. I have my notes in front of me. I can do it if I absolutely have to. But then I'm like, you know what? Let's just actually, a colleague who was there, he came in and he was like, just ask him. And the judge was so annoyed, he wanted to rush through this. I thought there was no way he would go dark for the afternoon. But I asked him, I said, Your Honor, we didn't expect it to go this fast. One of our witnesses are ready. Could we just have, quick come back tomorrow morning and resume the case then? And for whatever reason, he says, yeah, sure. It's like, things are moving quickly, so let's just come back the next day. And the plan is, okay, I'll have client testify and have, the family members testify, and we'll go from there. And it was great because at one point the reporter said, oh, who are you going to have testify? And I showed her the names, and she goes, oh, they're on the witness list already. And the DA goes, good, then I know who they are, and storms away. I'm like, okay. As it turns out, I go back to the office, and I have an email waiting for me from the detective who I tried to subpoena. And the detective is saying, hey, can you please call me about the subpoena? I need to talk to you about it. And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I give him a call, and he says, hey, man, I have plans on Friday. Is there any way I can come back? I can come on any other day.
Come in early.
So I'm like, how about tomorrow morning? Could you come in tomorrow morning? And he goes, oh, yeah, that'd be huge. Thank you so much. I'm like, no, thank you. Thank you very much.
Trial God smiled on you.
Yes. And so I come back so I decide, you know what? Not having the family members testify, I just, when people tell stories, who knows, what kind of, random memory holes. I don't want to distract from anybody else. And we decided that client will testify because he wants to testify. He wants to get his story out. And I think it's worthwhile to, explain more context, the environment, the fact that he was looking for a neutral, safe, transition of the kids, etc. So have the detective come in, And he's like, you know, I didn't do anything in this case, though, right? I'm like, exactly. And so I promise him, I'm like, sir, this will be less than 3 minutes. Swear.
If
Swear on my
you
life.
if you say that, then it's just one question, okay? And
Yeah.
you'll be out, okay?
And he was super cool about it. You know, he shows up. I asked him, you know, like, you got to sign this case on April 29th, right? Yep. And what you did is you called, you know, the complaining witness, you walked through the police report and she confirmed the details, right? Right. And then you closed the case on April 29th also, right? Yeah. And you filed a warrant, you know, for, you know, his arrest. He says, yep. And you did nothing else to investigate in this case, right? He says, yep. I'm like, okay, thank you. No problem. It was like 60 seconds. And then the DA on, you know, I guess on his cross, you know, asks like all these questions like, oh, like, you know, how many cases do you have at any given time? And he's like, oh, like 70. And so you don't have time to actually like interview everybody in all these, right?
That doesn't
No,
make
no.
it better.
It doesn't.
I'm like, what?
The fix he thinks
Yeah.
it is.
There's not going to be an argument. We would have more evidence if the detective had the time, Jerry, so please vote guilty.
He's like, so this is standard in your practice? He's like, yeah. Like, come on.
It's not the better
So-
that he thinks it is.
Yeah, not at all.
So then your
so
client
then
testifies?
client testifies.
Okay.
And, you know,
Did you
I'm
try to talk your
terrified.
client
By the
out of
way,
it?
Yeah, there's a world where the defense attorney, we're just like, hey, look,
I
you're
would
already
say
winning.
Yeah.
You know, there's these people, they're stout all over this case. You know, you don't need to testify, right? That's kind of like, I think, what we would say.
Yeah, the DA's case was an absolute disaster.
But there's also, like, if your client you talked about how your client testifies really well. He gets you passionate. He sounds so matter of fact and certain, you know, and the jurors do like hearing from the client. And so if you know if your client's going to do well, it's not a bad idea you could put him out. I don't think there's a wrong decision here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I wouldn't have
And
risked it.
I solicited a lot of advice and I got a lot of mixed opinions. Some people told me I had to have all of them testify. Some people told me I had nobody testify.
No.
And so I kind of just sat there like alone that night and was like trying to figure out what. And
What should I do? They say yes and they say no.
He did was he went home that night and listened to a lot of ANG podcasts to learn from other people.
Well, listen to the entire, you know,
The
catalog.
catalog. Yeah.
And I just decided, end of the day, you know, he wanted to testify.
It's his
I
right.
thought that there were aspects that I thought, you know, he could offer not just, you know, poking holes in, but in an explanation for. And at the end of the day, like the reason we ended up in this trial was because he was like so compelling and he believed in, and he had been right about everything at every step. You know, every place where there's like some risk or some explanation of things, he had been 100% right. And like everything he told me was 100%. And so he had really like guided this case and gotten us to this point. And so I was like, you know what, like, okay, like, and there's no impeachment. He can't be impeached or anything. You know, this is like a guy with a clean record, nothing to get him on. It'd only be on like factual differences.
And he said, if me testifying is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
in different words.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. All right, so tell us about his testimony. How'd it go?
Get him up
Yeah.
there.
So get him up there, and you know he does great. I mean, long story short, he does a really great job. We focus a lot on like the emotional pieces of it, and you know, like at one point, you know, actually you walked into the door, you know, what happened? You know, he's like, kids run towards him and you know jump into his arms. He's holding the kids, and you know, I'm always going through your mind at that point. I was just so happy to be with them, and you know, ask him about you know the fact that she was withholding the kids from him and wouldn't let him see them. And
Does he
he was
acknowledge
concerned.
that they had an argument? Because you can hear people arguing on the 911 call.
Oh yeah, and that's what he says. Like, you know, he walked in, you know, and said like, hey, I want to like, you know, get the court involved. I want them to like make these decisions. And he says like, you know, the parents started screaming at her. She started screaming at him. The brothers yelling. Like he says like it was chaos, and that's what made me realize like, oh my gosh, like I gotta set the kids down and like get out of here because like this is not going the way that I thought it would. And he also, you know, testifies that on prior incidents, like the reason he brought families because like they've gone crazy at him on prior incidents, and that's part of the reason why he wants a court order where like the kids have to be, you know, handed over in a neutral space because he feels like unsafe going to their house and being there for the transfer of the children and everything every time, and it's inconsistent, and they won't let him see them, and he talks about like he's crying, he's making me tear up at one point, like while I'm doing trial, like it's really. And then, you know, I just ended off with like, you know, and, you know, so who are you most excited to see when this trial's over? And, he's like, my kids, and blah, blah, blah. And it's clean. He does a great job. But then
got away with one. I'm surprised the prosecutor didn't object, right? You got away with one.
There was a few of those kind of sprinkled throughout. And
how do you do on cross?
On cross, it's not even so much about how he did. It was about the lack of emotional intelligence of the DA in this case.
How bad the DA did. Okay.
Because the DA, he goes up and the first thing he says is, oh, so on direct, you testified that, when you first walked in that house and you picked up your kids, there was nothing going through your mind, right? He's like, yeah, nothing. And he was like, you said you were just like, you weren't thinking about anything. No. But then suddenly you have a clear memory of the rest of the incident? And the client's like, yeah. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, obviously. And he does a few things like that. It's like so insensitive. And like, he goes after them. And this part is great because I didn't think that I could ever get this. Like, this seems totally inappropriate for me to bring up. And I thought the judge would kill me for it. But he says, isn't it true that the outcome of the custody case is going to be determined by the outcome of this case? And the client's like, yeah. And he's like, I bet you're thinking about that right now, aren't you? And client goes, yeah, I am. And I'm like, I said that I cannot believe that he just put in front of the jury like this horrible consequence, because even if they thought he was guilty of this or something, it's like, you just made it clear like that this is going to have some like really horrible outcome. It's really emotional. And like, you're deciding something way beyond, the guilt or innocence in this case, but you're deciding like the custody of these kids.
Like, I feel like on redirect, did you go for it on redirect, or was it more about the cross you want to talk about?
Honestly, the redirect I didn't do much on.
Because it's the jurors aren't supposed to consider punishment or collateral consequences, but you literally can now cross-examine on the collateral consequences. If you are found guilty of this, you will lose custody of you won't get custody of your kids, and you won't have visitation. That's what the jurors are going to be sitting with when they make their decision.
And that's on the redirect. Literally, I went up and I asked one question, and I was like, "Sir, like, would you say this is the most important thing you've ever done in your entire life?" And he's like, "Yes, 100%."
Oh wow!
And just like emphasized, like, yeah, this is a really critical moment for him because like this. Because I asked him in the direct, how did we end up here? Like, he's like, how are you feeling watching all this evidence come in? And he's like, I just cannot believe, like, how far a lie can get. Yeah. So the one other thing he does is he tries to set him up for this impeachment. He's like, why was she withholding the kids from you? And he was like, because we got in an argument. And he was like, what was the argument about? And he like explained what it was like some dumb argument about his like job or like it's like not making enough money or something. And so he like ends that. So whatever, we close, defense rests, and judge says okay, and like people, any rebuttal, and the DA sits there for like 90 seconds just staring at the ceiling, going and the judge goes, having heard nothing, and the DA goes, yes, having heard nothing for now.
For now,
so like, what?
You're not getting another chance.
I'm sitting there like, this is it. It's like, okay, moving on. And so, so judge starts giving the jury instructions. Like he's getting them ready, giving them the jury instructions. And about 15 minutes into it, the DA just goes, Your Honor, can we have a sidebar?
Oh,
and the judge is like, what is going on here? And so the DA goes up and he says, yes, so Your Honor, I think that on cross, the defendant opened himself up to a potential rebuttal witness to impeach him. And the judge is like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I think that I could get a rebuttal witness probably back here to, I think they would impeach what he said there at the end about what the argument was about. And the judge is like, are you serious? No. Like, you don't even know if you can get him back. You don't know what they're going to testify to. No, not to mention the fact that it's over. It's way too late. No way.
You've lost, bro.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, he's sitting there trying to reopen the case on
Way to
the
go.
most useless thing ever. Like, yeah, so that was really special. And so he tells him off, we move on, we get to closing, and the DA decides to make his entire closing. He starts off with his theme, and his theme is beautiful. It's so good. He says, whenever I get a case, I sit down and I wonder, why did we end up here? Why did we end up in this trial? Like, what did somebody do or not do, to end up in this case, to bring us all here, all these resources? And he says, this case, it's about doing things the right way. And the fact that the defendant didn't do things the right way. And so he goes in and he makes his entire closing theme about doing things the right way. And he says, this custody battle has nothing to do with anything. He plays an 911 call a bunch. He puts up the photos of the left arm, 6 times for whatever reason, even though we have no indication that it was actually the left arm anymore. And so then I'm sitting there, I am salivating. I'm so excited because I'm sitting there editing my PowerPoint as it's going along, and I changed my entire theme to doing things the right way. I'm like, this is perfect. And in my PowerPoint, I go through and I have it people. I use a lot of animations, and so I have people v the name, and I have it cross out people and just put her name. And it's this case isn't about the people. That implies there's some investigation, blah blah blah, whatever. But what this case is really about, the prosecutor and I, the only thing we're going to agree on this entire time is what he just said. And that this case is all about doing things the right way and who did things the right way. And, I went off about, who here did things the right way? Was the person who lied under oath about what happened? Was it the person who was illegally withholding kids from their partner? Was it the person who was trying to reject, a formal process? Or was it the person who showed up with witnesses to the house to initiate a court custody case so they could request that the judge order that the kids are taken to doctor's appointments, that the kids are exchanged on neutral territory, that they're, shared evenly? And I just go off on him about the concept, the audacity of him to possibly suggest that this case is about doing things the right way and that somehow that hurts us. And so I just go through I go through, I can't go through the other legal standards because I was banned from that, which was frustrating. So I had to delete, about a dozen slides on that. But I keep in one slide that's it attaches the feelings that you feel to whether that's guilty or not guilty. So I try and get around it that way. And I'm like, look, if he's probably not guilty, if he probably didn't do it, not guilty. And I go through it all. I'm even if you have a strong belief that he did it, but you don't think it was beyond a reasonable doubt, not guilty. And kind of go through what that emotional feeling is and explain that is still not guilty. And then I just go through for each of the witnesses. I just go through quote by quote every single lie that they told. And it takes up 4 slides for each of them. I mean, it is just quote after quote after quote. And I'm just going off about, they lied about this, they lied about that. They didn't know how to do anything but lie in this case. And I acknowledge, I was half the stuff didn't even matter. It has nothing to do with the case, yet they still lied about it. They just couldn't help themselves. They knew nothing else. All they knew was to come in here and say whatever they thought was going to be helpful, whether it was a lie and whether it was misguided and not even helpful to them. They don't even know what to lie about or not. They just think that they should lie because they know the truth will hurt them. And that is it. And so I go off on that. And then I ended with, in the voir dire, somebody had given me beyond a reasonable doubt, analogy to do, which is the pole vaulting. And, in pole vaulting, you can get 30 feet up in the air. You're right about there. But even if you just hit it just barely and tap that pole, holding doesn't count. It's not worth anything. And how that's the same as beyond a reasonable doubt. And so in this case, I put up a GIF that, had, I was in this case, they tried to do it. And I think this is apt. And it's a pole vaulter running with the pole vault. He goes up and then it just flings him backwards in the opposite direction. So I was not only did they not make it over,
you're talking shit.
and 3 or 4 of the jurors are cracking up.
Yeah.
The jurors are laughing about it. And then I end with this other item that loved this. And it was the prosecutors, they get an opportunity to provide a rebuttal. And it's an optional thing. They don't have to do it. If they feel really good about their case, they don't have to use their rebuttal.
Argument?
Yes, their B argument.
Oh, they always
And-
use it though.
But they could waive it. They could waive it if they
Not
didn't
gonna
think they
happen.
needed to. And so then the entire first 5-10 minutes of the B argument, the rebuttal, he's just explaining why he's making the rebuttal in the first place. And he's like, no, it doesn't mean I'm not confident in the case, blah, blah, whatever. He said, we're allowed to do this because, we have the presumption, we have the burdens
burden.
on us, blah, blah, blah. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, then, Peter, I don't mean to cut you off though, but
Yeah.
is like I just want to know like how long were the jurors out for then? Like on this,
Yeah.
like how long did they deliberate for?
So right before we get to that,
Okay.
because it's related, we finished closing.
Okay.
The judge is giving them the final instructions to go back and deliberate.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, he just says this thing that I'm like, wait, what? He goes, now I'm going to make one comment on the evidence in this case.
What?
And I'm like, excuse me? Like what? So I'm kind of perking up.
The judge?
And yes, the judge. And he says, I'm not going to tell you how to weigh it. Oh, sorry, because in the rebuttal, the DA spends the entire rebuttal after explaining why he has it. He says, you don't consider all that other stuff. The TicTok, the family court, the custody, that's not evidence in this case. That's separate. You're here to decide what happened on this night. And so the judge says, basically in response to the rebuttal, he says, I'm not going to tell you how to weigh the evidence, but I'll tell you what is evidence. And in this case, it is evidence that Miss So-and-so said under oath in the family court proceedings that her son was strangled. That is evidence that you may consider. Now, I won't tell you how to vote, but you can consider that.
Hated the DA.
Yes.
Wow.
And I was floored. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is the greatest. And so I sat there and, I'm hanging around, they're like, okay, be on call, whatever, don't leave the building. I didn't just not leave the building. I didn't leave the courtroom for like 15 minutes because I was like, oh, they're going to come back here, 15 minutes, not guilty. This is going to be like, 5 minutes, beautiful. That was not what happened, unfortunately. So they go back, they waste the rest of the afternoon, hour and a half. And I'm like, oh man, like that's annoying. Like, dang. I guess it's still open question. So go home that night, come back in the morning, and they start deliberating at like 10 in the morning. And around like 11:30, there was a buzz come in and there's a question. And I'm like, oh, geez, like why are they still even thinking about this? And why do they have a question? What is it possibly about? Is it like, can we charge her with perjury? Because if it's anything but that, like, I don't like this. The question, as it turns out, is signed by the foreperson, and the foreperson is the person who wants to go to law school and be a lawyer. And the question is,
making that shit take forever.
Yep, and the question is, what does willfully mean? So they want to know about willfully for both counts, because both it's like, it's willful touching,
A willful act. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like okay.
And I sit there and I'm like,
bullshit.
holy crap. I'm like, the cases, I blew the entire case somehow. I'm like, we're about to lose because our
Why are
entire
you
defense is,
asking that question?
yeah, our entire defense is that there was never any contact made. So if you're wondering whether the contact was intentional or not, then you're automatically, by default, rejecting our entire defense here and accepting the facts as presented by the prosecution. And so I'm like texting people and they're all, is there the best way for me to handle the question? They're like, nope, you're feeling just screwed. That's a horrible question. They're like, that's literally the worst question you could possibly get. And the judge, he looks at me and he's like shaking his head. And he's
How
like,
did you blow this?
yeah. and the court staff is looking at me. I'm like, I'm sick. I'm sick to my stomach. I mean, his whole family is there. They're asking me, what does it mean? What does it mean? And I was like, jeez. I was like, it's not great. It's not what I wanted.
Because it's okay. I mean, I feel the same way. Because really, like, if you listen to all the evidence, the way you've told the story, it should just be like everyone went back to me like, this is fucking bullshit. We're not getting involved in this. Fuck them. Not guilty. But now they're talking about what they think factually happened, and they even think that maybe your client did touch someone. And so now it's like, did he willfully touch him or accidentally touch him? And that's what that's the analysis in our heads at this moment. They always say you never know what the fuck the jurors are thinking. Don't give too much weight into their questions as well. But that you can't help it, right? So
yeah, definitely cannot help it there. I was feeling pretty horrible. And I started preparing a motion to set aside the verdict, and for a new trial. And I was going to, say like, this verdict, is contrary to the evidence, and this can't possibly stand. So I was kind of like trying to get something to put together for that, because I'm like, this is ridiculous, and this verdict is definitely my fault, not the fact's fault. And then so we answer willfully, we answer the question, we read the jury instructions, and it's not even like it's helpful instruction stuff. It's like they would like to do the act, and they come back 10 minutes later with the verdict.
Okay.
And I'm like,
oh,
no, this is so bad. Like, we gave them the answer. The answer is not a good answer for us. Not like withstanding the context of it. And I'm like, this is so horrible. I'm like, I'm quitting this job. This job is I'm just like, I hate this so much. The family's there. The deputies come out. They're surrounding him. Like ready to take him into custody. I tell him, I'm like basically like, yeah, start taking off your watch, like.
Hand your keys to someone else.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh, what do you think is going to happen? I'm like, honestly, man, like, if I'm being, like, fully honest, like, I don't feel like this right now. And
so what happens? Come on.
They come out, the JA, there's actually a JA training that day, so they let her read the verdict. And so she's kind of like going really slowly through it. And they get, first count, not guilty. And I'm like, can't breathe. Like,
that's
can't
the
breathe.
DV count.
Yeah.
The DV.
Yep. First
Okay.
count was the DV count, not guilty. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, but there's still bloody nose. Like, it could still be anything. So I'm just like holding my breath. Boom. Count 2, not guilty. And I just, client starts bawling, crying next to me. I start crying. I'm like so excited, so happy. I'm looking at the jury like, the court reporter is looking at me like, thumbs up. And I'm like, the client and I stand up and we just like sit down like hug, and he's like crying in my shoulder for like 5 minutes, just like absolutely dying. I'm crying. His family's
crying too.
Crying because he couldn't get out of it fast enough. And I mean, it was just like electric. I mean, I was so happy. The family, so happy. He's literally got like 10 family members. Everyone's going crazy. It's so good. And I'm like, look, we'll go outside. Like, I asked the judge to have the jury wait outside because, I'm really excited to talk to the jury now. I'm like, oh, I got to know what's going on here. And he tells the jury, if you want, you can wait outside for, the attorneys will ask you some questions. And then he says, but counsel, like, please come up to the bench. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So I'm like, hey, I'll meet you out there. And so the DA and I get called up to the bench, and judge goes, I just want you to know that, in my 30 years, of practice, not once have I ever felt compelled to make an instruction like the one I did as they went in. Because, and he looks at the DA and says, because what you did in your rebuttal was so incredibly inappropriate. Not only did it walk the line, it crossed the line, because you told them that they could not consider this, which, even though it is evidence, and you told them not to consider it and that they couldn't consider it, and I felt compelled, like I had to explain to them that they could. And you know what? If they'd come back with a guilty verdict, I would have invited a motion to set that aside and have a new trial because of that. And he looks at the DA, and he's like, oh, you look surprised. Are you surprised? And it's like, yes. And he looks at me and goes, Mr. Neal, are you surprised? I go, oh, no, Your Honor, I had the motion ready to go.
What an awesome judge, dude.
Shout out to a bench officer on this
That's
show.
By the end, I was like, love him. He's amazing. Because the thing is, in the end, he appreciated the competency, and like the reality of it, which was
I feel like though, okay, judges on misdemeanor cases do beat up on prosecutors more, but would he beat up on a prosecutor like that on a real serious felony case, like when there's like a real a person like a when the prosecutor's crossing the line or saying things, would he do that like on a murder case or a rape case or anything like a kidnap? Like
I don't know. I have a guess as to who this judge is. I think he might.
So
I can't wait for us to stop recording so I can hear the name of the judge. I have a guess.
I'm walking away. I'm like, I love that guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check into his courtroom every time I'm there.
So did you talk to the jurors afterwards?
Yeah. So talked to the jurors afterwards, and they had some good thoughts, and I asked them. So I'm like, so they tell me what happened when you first went back there. What happened? And they said they went back right when it finished, and they took a vote, and the vote was 11-1, not guilty. And so it was so close. It was so close to get in. But then the one person, they're like, but one person, we won't say who, wanted to go through all the evidence and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I asked them, and I was like, so like, did you feel like when you voted not guilty, were you voting not guilty because you actually felt like you didn't do it? And she was like, no, I know he didn't, but. And I was like, and somebody was like, oh, they asked me like how many trials I'd done and how long I was working. I was like, oh, I just started, blah, blah, blah. And they were looking at her like, oh, look, you could do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you could, like, intern in the PD's office. And she just goes, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they kind of, what she actually said that what got her in the end was the feelings. The slide that she said really helped her was like attaching the feelings to whether it was guilty or not guilty. And so she was able to like sit there and say like, look, I may have like a strong belief, that he's guilty, but I still gotta say not guilty. So I guess that got her around. And I think the asking the question, she was just like Hail Marying, trying to get anybody else I think on her side. But
yeah. So the person who's going to law school or wants to go to law school was the holdup then.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I have never had someone come in for jury selection saying that they would like to be a lawyer and say they wanted to come in on our side. They always come in like, I watch Law & Order, I want to be a prosecutor. Thank you so much. I would like to thank and excuse you right now.
She was like, oh, I was like, oh, you still want to be a lawyer though? She goes, yeah, but never a juror again. I'm like, oh, man. But they also, I asked them about their social media. And I was like, oh, so I want to ask you all about the social media. They all start cracking up. They're like, time. And I'm like, okay, so clearly entertaining, but was it like relevant at all? And they go, no.
That's what I'm saying. It's not relevant.
but then they did say, they were like, oh, the stuff itself didn't really matter, but the way he responded. They said the way he responded mattered so much to them, and they thought he was like, totally unreliable. So that was nice at least. Did he
have 5 less fans after the jury trial on his 5 less people following him?
No, I cut all of them. I'm gonna let them stay on there. So they have no idea, who their idol is.
Okay, great. Well, this is a great trial, dude. Peter, thanks for coming on the afternoon, spending your lunch break with us, sharing your story about your great victory.
It's so great having the young lawyers too. They're so excited about everything.
It's fun. It's so much fun.
It is fun.
It's and the DAs are always the biggest babies in misdemeanors too. So we love hearing about that.
I tried getting in the elevator with him the other day. I got in. He waited for the next one. So.
Oh, nice. Oh, good.
Some love lost there.
All right, Peter. Well, okay. So despite how well you performed in this case, you've only been a public defender for less than a year. So that's pretty cool, pretty dope. You sound like you're pretty confident. You seem pretty comfortable in front of people. You went to law school. Maybe you could have had practiced anywhere else or had a job anywhere else, but you chose the public defender's office, and we want to know why. Why did you become a public defender?
I did. I kind of went to law school knowing I wanted to do public service, as, some concept of a thing. And I think over time I realized, it wasn't necessarily the prosecutor side. And I realized, public defense is just the coolest, like most badass, like most direct way you could possibly impact somebody. I mean, that is like, there's no abstract concept of, I'm going to push this paper around, do this or that, and then maybe somebody will be helped. It's like, no, you are like every day in the trenches, like helping people and actually having like a real impact. Mm-hmm. I like love that. And I'm obsessed with the fact that, all the, education and privilege and life that like I got to have. Like some people have like, great stories. Like I wanted, represent, my friend, whatever. And I'm like, my brother's a federal prosecutor. Like this was not necessarily like where, he would have said I would end up. But I think it's like the greatest thing I've like lending out and like gifting basically all that, like, education, everything to somebody, like people on a daily basis to like use. Like people are like, nobody else is standing up for them. Nobody else is, sitting there looking at them. Everyone's assuming, they're guilty, want to move on, whatever. And it's like, loan them for whatever, how long you represent them, all of that, and like they can have it, and the benefit of it is like the greatest thing ever. So that's what I love about it, and why.
Was your brother, your federal prosecutor brother, excited about your not guilty?
He was not.
I want to know if your parents were. Are you the black sheep because you're the public defender?
My brother hates it because he's older than me. And, our family group chat used to just be my parents cheering on him, like, yay, congrats. Like, that person who, like that murderer is in jail now or whatever.
Yeah.
But now he hates it because the group chat's like, yay, like, that guy was getting railroaded.
The prosecutor stacked charges, as they always do. We undid it.
My brother's like, how was lying today? I'm like, what are you talking about? But, I feel bad that, shout out Elliot, but like the week before, he had this big case that, like, it's months and months lying, they're prepping it, whatever. They have all those resources the prosecutors get, and they got a 11-1 hang. And so I was really happy,
You got your not guilty.
Yeah.
How's that for some nice sibling rivalry?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thanks for being on the show, Peter. It was great having you. And Lauren, as always, awesome to see you again.
A pleasure.
It was fun.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully the surprises were, well taken. Or you're going to make everyone fill out the form for sure now.
Oh, I know.
You
It's
were
all
fun.
good. It was fun. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.